Welcome back to Magus in the Media, and again for a wonderful Monday evening, we have the great and wonderful Jin with us, and we're going to do an amazing conversation today, something that I think everyone thinks of all the time, interesting enough, and it is always thought about because the egregore wanders above and hovers within all of the time-space continuum of our cult of celebrity, the egregores we build. And these egregores that are being built, it's not a new thing. It's not even that it's that old also, but it's a current that moves through what happens when we build up these structures and then we worship these demigods, these demagoguery, this celebrity. And I think it's net negative, but also if we can see it for what it is, dragons to be slain in this crazy, strange world we live in, we can understand what it means to light our own stars. Why? Because as Aleister Crowley stated, magic is for all. Hello, my friend Jin. How are you doing today?
Brandon fucking Lee, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited. Obviously, we have made this a kind of magical gonzo radio hour on YouTube. And I would say to good reviews. And I appreciate that, all our homies from Twitter and the Grey Lodge especially show up. And I know I could take this opportunity, and I will, to plug myself, but I want to shout out a very special episode of Eros Up. Obviously, right there, Eros right there. So she just interviewed my co-host Solar Exile on her Esoteric interview series, and it is really I would only be okay with certain people getting better numbers than my interview with Eros. So one of those would of course be Brandon, but second, not second, but definitely another person would be Solar. So I'm so happy that with how that went and just the depth of that conversation. I highly recommend everybody to check out that and all of Eros's work and on her channel, and of course all of Solar's episodes on my show, of which he has one upcoming. I know I said last week it was coming out, but I lied. Wednesday the 22nd. Y'all know I like my magic numbers, okay? So Wednesday the 22nd, I will drop his episode with Paul Frederick, of which I, of course, am also there, but he kind of leads that conversation. And he actually has quite a few coming up on my show, at least two more, at least, I think, that I have in the archive. That's not to say that I'm not recording more. I just recorded with the most coolest, I shouldn't say that. The bardist with the best bars. He is Tom Will. He just wrote a new book, and he is the co-publisher for Farthest Heaven. Excuse me, not Furthest Heaven. Yeah, Furthest Heaven. Farthest Heaven. I can't remember. Well, it's a very cool publisher. It's an alt-lit publisher. They have novels. They have poetry. And I love a poet, as you know, Brandon, because both of us kind of consider ourselves poets. Poets draw the magical words from Hokmah and to Hode, which is what we are.
Great bars.
Well, it's true. And so that's why you talk to poets, even if the poets don't necessarily consider themselves esoteric. But interestingly, Tom did study Kabbalah and he did study tarot. He's going to murder me for saying this. But I did actually, he said I couldn't talk about it on the episode, but I asked his permission twice and he allowed me. So he actually agreed. So it worked out great. So look out for that. I've got a lot of episodes coming out. I've been a little slow. I'm sorry, but you can definitely go listen to the latest episode drop, which was only last week, thresholdsaints.substack.com, which was with Joshua and Seth, our two lodge members. We did the Kabbalah and the sort of neo-Gnostic framework of the Sethian framework of Dark Souls and Elden Ring. So if you're interested in metagame theory and meta magic and how that relates to the meta cosmology, that would be a great episode for you. So check that out, Substack, Apple, Spotify. And of course, like and subscribe to Magus in the fucking media, because that is our, that's our base. That's our foundation. That's our yesod for doing this. And yes, Friday night, Gnostic Mass will be happening live on Twitter. Hey, Cassandra, our princess from the moon, our lodge member. See, I like each other. It's so funny
It's
because,
true.
the group chat's been going for almost 2 years. And I can legit say that we now, I don't know what happened, but we have come to a place where the majority of people interact and the majority of people are actually friends and they're very supportive. So, and they all know they're welcome on my show anytime. Cassandra's coming on, Eros is coming on, and so obviously Brandon's coming on, but we're keeping that top secret. Kaiva's coming on.
Yes, she
So
is.
we're keeping the multiverse alive.
Yes, we are keeping that multiverse alive. And I think it's the multiverse is interesting enough. And I think this is actually a good starting off point with our conversation of the cult of celebrity. Interesting enough, because something just dropped, and I don't know how connected you are to the new movies of the Marvel multiverse, but the Doom is coming out here in December, and they dropped the trailer. I'm going to be probably doing I'll be doing a breakdown of it here pretty soon. And the idea of why I ring true to the cult of celebrity in Doom, the Avengers, is because of how trash these movies have been over the past few years, since basically Endgame and Infinity Wars. And so the reason I'm bringing that up is because they have brought back all the old characters, because of the last how many years of DEI wokedom being integrated into that great pedo mouse Disney has been one of those things where it's like, we must bring back Captain America and Robert Downey Jr., who is now Doom. Why is that? Well, because the movies are doing so bad, we need to bring back the nostalgia of when it worked. Interesting enough, that nostalgia is that cult of celebrity, the egregore that was built up through all those years when Marvel was actually leading the rung in superhero movies. And so I think it's fascinating how what they've done to it, what Kathleen Kennedy has done to the Marvel universe, let alone Disney. I think it's fascinating that now she's gone and they're trying to bring back these older characters to strengthen these movies again, to see if they can hit blockbuster numbers. What do you think about that?
Look, I am a known gincel. Shout out Solar on the mountain. I don't watch movies like that, Brandon. I think you know this too. I think we've actually discussed it. I keep my mind palace. I just keep it filled with skywives, J's as in joints, and good vibes. So for me, whatever Marvel does, I'm not super within their multiverse. I'm not contained in their sort of narrative formation, but I do believe, obviously, we've done shows on this before. I certainly, all the entire American comic book publishing project is a hermeneutic. Unquestionably, unconditionally, without reservation, it is to create the young American magi, which I think in some ways it probably has inspired many trials, if not successfully produced anyone yet. Maybe it has. But I definitely think that it was at the very beginning, and it's continues on. And like, yes, there has been a turn. I was a comic book reader my entire life, American comic books. They're actually called Comic C in Bahasa, which is my dad's language. And so one of the ways that when I was a kid, I've told a story before, but one of the ways that, the primary way actually I learned how to speak Indonesian or Bahasa was my dad would come back from Indonesia with tons and tons of these Chinese comics, but they were translated in Indonesian. And he would just throw them at me kind of in these big bags and be like, okay, figured out what they say, read them. So that is basically what I did. And so that's also how I got interested in like Chinese manhua and like the wuxia stories and the sort of swordsman and all the Zhanghu kind of literature that is directly related to Chinese comic books. But there's also American comic books called Comic C. These are very, very, very popular in Southeast Asia, Philippines and Indonesia both. And so my dad loves comic books, American comic books. And so he always brought me to the comic book store. with him. This is one of my good memories of him, is that, you know, we would go to the comic book store and be like, buy whatever you want. And he would get his weeklies and his monthlies and whatever he was picking up. And I would just sort of like do whatever I wanted in terms of like, I would read this one, read this one, read that one. So I'm a longtime comic book reader. All that being said, I have seen the increase of quote unquote wokeness in the comic books. It's not new. I know some people will say it's creeped up, and certainly in the film terms it has, but in the actual comic books it's been, you know, it's been happening for a long time. The left wingification of the publishing
Yeah,
happened probably 25 years ago.
for sure.
So,
Yep.
you know, and it depends. And even in the 80s, you can look at you can look at the New Mutants, you can look at there was the group of X-Men who lived in the sewers, and there was like a lot of talk about like difference and oppression and all of that kind of you know, all of that.
Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah. So you know, I think it was a genesis of the early ideas of like these things of like social relations, to use like a more Marxist framing. And so I think that we just take of it like, we don't have to agree with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm more of the school that we should base our social relationships based on life experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
my life
Agreed.
experience is that you have to be a tough motherfucker to survive,
Yeah.
that you do have to trust to a degree, and that you do have to have a friend group
Yes.
and sort of you have to have a team, a squad, a crew. And so I guess how people want to organize that, is it ideological, political, racial? Well, obviously I'm mixed race.
I am too.
So
You
right,
wouldn't guess it.
I was gonna say, but I was like, you know what? I shouldn't speak for him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but you know, so I'm never gonna be like, oh, we need to do this or do this or do this. Like, that's not my project. And for the record, I have joked many times on the show about having a greater internet project. I really don't. I'm just I'm a young chaos. Well, I'm not that young, but I'm a chaos dharma bum. Yeah. That's all I am. Just a sorcerer on the carnal ground. I do not have an internet project, but my internet project kind of is to be a magician on the internet, which is what this show of Brandon and the Grey Lodge and my own show, Threshold Saints, allows me to do. So what I'm saying in relation to Marvel is, I think that Marvel, look, they're going to play out their DEI narratives for as long as they believe it is not only profitable, but as long as their sort of corporate overlords are going to tell them to do it. Is there been a shift? Not really. I know that a lot of the red pilled kind of like media guys think there's been this huge cultural shift and like we're over the era of wokeness. I think that it's just waned, like all cultural fads kind of wane. And this one ran its course extra quickly because a lot of people pushed back on it. But I don't think it's necessarily over. And I think that people are going to have to become accustomed to a kind of kinder, nicer, more inclusive kind of worldview in terms of cinema, in terms of the cinematic universe. But that's also presents a choice. Remember, like, we love our high agency ideas. So do you continue to support Marvel movies? Now, I've always been very anti-corporate. So for me, I am definitely a non-Marvel film enjoyer. But I understand that comes across as rather grandpa, curmudgeon, very like anti-pop culture. But I'm clearly not anti-pop culture. There's something in pop culture I deeply love: anime, manga, comics, all of that. So I don't know, but I think it presents an interesting opportunity. I think people can make for themselves a choice. Like, do we support these things that are going to continue to propagate narratives that may or may not be in our interests? And obviously, where I'm arguing they're not, I would say fuck it. But that's me. What do you think, Brandon?
Well, yeah, no, I think you hit on all the right dots. Is that it has something to do with how we never are truly going backwards, and so everything that's been going on with the more woke Marvel, the DEI stuff, the integrating inclusivity, making sure we're like changing characters, genders, and and their skin tone and all these things. It's as much as it has lost them a lot of money, it's almost like it's in the cultural zeitgeist and the conversation of what has been built, and it goes back to this egregoric talk of how when this egregore itself doesn't need money, but what it wants is it wants fear, and it wants your lust and love, and it wants your excitement, and no matter what side you're on, which is why I'm not taking a side ever. I find that my own ideas of my own geopolitics or my own philosophies are so nuanced that I could find myself on either side of things, but at the same time, understanding that magicians don't take sides when it comes to these things. We stand on the precipice as we're watching the world burn and fall, and we do what we can to help people understand that burning and falling is just what it is. It is an illusion to the cultural zeitgeist of what's going on. And so I find it fascinating that when it comes to what we've done now and create these celebrities and stars, is that they're not even, there are no celebrities or stars really anymore, but we have. But the idea is that when we wrap an energy into something that is greater than ourselves, then we don't actually have to make or do any of the work. Like in the past, all these great stories used to help us understand our own cultural conditioning and our own place in our family and our own place in the world. But as entertainment has become so much more CGI, and the stories have become lackluster and lack of meaning, now we don't know what to do with ourselves. And so it's like a fascinating kind of understanding of where we're at in our life, that there's no going back to or putting the genie back in the bottle. And I think that's why it's really important to understand something that Terence McKenna has said, and I've said many times because of what he said, is that this is what it looks like when a planet gives birth. And the idea is that there will be a lot of birth pangs as we go through that. And there will be a lot of egregores created, egregores being these autonomous entities that are created from our thought forms. And then when we give it energy, we are giving birth to a new thing that's going to want to then suckle off of the teat of our emotions. And so I find it very, very, such a fascinating conversation. I also want to shout out Stella for that super chat. Thank you, Stella. Just know you are the first super chatter on Magus in the media, and you will forever be in that sphere of greatness. So that's fucking awesome. Thank you, Stella, for that super chat. Yeah. So what are you feeling, Jen?
Stella, appreciate it. Obviously,
yeah.
We like, I don't know, but I've never been on a show that had a super chat really, except for rejects. But I'm super happy. I'm honest, legit happy. Please give super chats for Magus in the media, especially our Monday night show, because it makes me look cool, and Brandon will associate me with the super chat. So yeah, I love it. So fuck yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's the aeon of decoherence. I've said this before. I think it really is. All the old klipas are broken. All the old husks are broken. People's engagement with properties, even with the Marvel, it is not like how it was when we were kids.
No,
like, it really isn't. No. And people's even attention spans are totally different. People like what people like is totally different. I just want to shout out that multiple people have just now messaged me after they saw that I was someone asked me for a music recommendation, and then other people asked me what the music was and if I could send them the link in DM. So I'm just going to say, yes, I always listen to music when I record, almost every time. I find it actually helps me kind of go through Sephirotic ideas. Obviously, I've argued in the past, music has a color quality, a sonic quality that can also be understood in color. Hey, Joshua, what's up, buddy? There's our other co-host for the Grey Lodge, Joshua. Love him. So I'm listening to a Pink and Grey album right now. It's called Pink Shiny Ultra Blast, which sounds weird, but it's a shoegaze band. Anyone who knows me, anyone who is in the group chat knows that I'm a shoegaze boy. I love a drone. I love, I love that kind of dirty guitar. It sounds pink to me. So I just want to say that. But okay, so back on track. Sorry, Brandon. I just think that there's going to be multiple egregores. I totally agree with you. I think that egregores are, well, if we choose to put our attention into something, we don't have to choose. We can choose something else. We can make our own egregore. We can, egregores are only as real as we sort of manifest them to be. And so that is kind of what I think is interesting about moving into a new aeon, is that we actually get to pick the stories that are meaningful to us, individuation.
Yeah.
Instead of like in mass. And, like a lot of people have talked about this, but there is no such thing as subculture or fan cultures anymore. There is fan culture on Twitter, obviously. They call themselves Stan Twitter or whatever. But like celebrities are lame as fuck. I'm sorry. Like, they really are.
Oh yeah.
They're so lame.
Oh, yeah.
They're not cool. The singers aren't cool. Like, yeah, I get it. And Cassandra's in the chat. And Cassandra and I, we share a lot of those like 90s kind of like references. Like, I love Aaliyah. Like, I think Aaliyah's
for sure. And she was sacrificed. And that's going back to the idea of celebrities as egregores and worshiping the ancient ones. Everyone head over to Dr. Heather Lynn and make sure that they, after this, obviously don't do it now, we're streaming. But the idea is that she's been hitting on all these things about the celebrity / parasitic oligarchical a ruling overlord class that thinks they're overlording us, but they're really not. But the idea is that they are sacrificing these things to like the Baal or Moloch or these higher ancient old ones. And I think Aaliyah was one of them. So
so why don't
and just remember she was like 14 or 15 and Jay-Z was dating her. So let's just talk about that. R. Kelly. Oh, Curry, thank you. Yeah, fuck Jay-Z too though.
Well, I mean, he's a magician. I'm a little scared. I might get lightning struck. He's been known to do that.
Yeah, we'll bring it. Yeah. I got my sword right here.
Okay, Brandon, calm down. Aaliyah, well, it is interesting. Okay, so let's look at her through an Aonic framework. They called her the princess of hip hop and R&B. The princess. Yeah. That's really interesting. Very Aeon of the daughter.
Yeah, and
she was a triple threat, as they used to call it. In the early 2000s, she was a dancer, singer, and an actress.
Yeah.
So 3 things, 3 keywords. I don't know, something kind of interesting about that. As well as she was just cool as fuck, and a lot of people liked her. And she was also she introduced a whole fashion style. It's called Med Goth.
Yeah.
They don't really use that term anymore. They call it Sport Goth, which is where when you wear like a lot of like a black Nike, and like I'm kind of goth, so I mean I'm wearing a Slayer t-shirt and black jeans right now. So I usually do wear black. I know sometimes I'll post in color, but I only really wear.
Pretty sure Slayer is not goth, but that's cool. Here she is.
Well, I don't think Slayer is goth. I'm just wearing a black Slayer t-shirt.
Right. That's cool.
But I don't really listen to goth music that much anymore. I grew up from like being 14. But I still, I listen to shoegaze. So, but Aaliyah's really fucking cool, and she just was like kind of, I don't want to call it like icon because that makes it sound like very Zoomer. It wasn't like that. She wasn't like an icon. She was just kind of like a very important millennial figure. She just like, it was like TLC, when Left Eye died, for a certain crowd of people, for like the American millennial who was watching BT after school. Which is what I did. We would come home, would be, I think Fridays, we'd watch 106 in Park. I forgot if it was Friday, but it was one night a week, because we were always at school till really late. I went to that kind of school where we had extracurriculars. But so, we'd come back, watch 106 in Park. And it wasn't even about listening to that music. Like, I never listened to Lil Wayne.
Right.
But he was a big feature on 106 in Park, and just like Aaliyah was a big feature on 106 in Park. And a lot of those people watched also were on MTV. And if you were a millennial and watching like that stuff, they were all on MTV too. It was like the crossover time of like, it was the mixture of like hip hop, then you had like hard rock, then you had like all the different kinds. You had like grunge, you had post grunge, you had, it was everything. It was like we all listened to everything, even if you didn't particularly personally listen to it, you were aware that other subgroups existed.
Of course.
And so I just think she was just like a very like important figure. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, Brandon. I think I'm a little more skeptical than that of like maybe they are, maybe they did. Okay, so say they did. It happened right around 9/11.
Yeah,
maybe they did. Okay, so they did that, but the spirit of the Aeon lives on. She's very popular in memes and GIFs. She's very popular among Zoomers. So in some ways, like it kind of, she transcended time and space.
Yes, to sort of what? Finish your statement, then I want to add.
No, to sort of like arise now on the internet as like the internet is the carnal ground. So she arises as kind of a Aeon or a ghost of the Aeon or a kind of shade of the Aeon. And if people really actually like watched her films with Jet Li, like that was like such an important martial arts movie. It was like hugely important in like a cinematic, like in history of cinema way. It was like one of the first on-screen kisses between a black girl and a Chinese guy. I know people are like, oh yeah, Jin, it's like your Khazarian fantasy that like race Habamoria is like race mixing. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it was like a totally different. You would never see this in a Chinese movie, and you would never ever see this in an American movie. Right. This kind of shifted all of that, and they were also had like a huge age gap too, so that also made that movie really interesting. And the martial arts was sick. It was like well choreographed. It was well done. The story A to Z was great. It was like a Romeo and Juliet. Her dad was a gangster. His dad was a gangster. Where do the kids of the gangsters meet? I don't know. I kind of identify with that. I'm not saying anything about my family, but I'm just saying. So anyways, but no, I think it was a great love story. I think it was an American love story, and I really love that movie, Romeo and Messiah. So I think everybody should watch that. And in that, and what I'm trying to say is the spirit of the Aeon is in that, as well as Queen of the Damned, regardless of how bad Queen of the Damned was. There was really interesting ideas in it. And
well, it's because they took out so much. They cut so much from that film that they like basically like took all of its actual essence and then put out this really shitty, even though it was so interesting enough, it was a terrible, and it turned into a cult classic. And it goes back into just that idea of what is cult, what is celebrity, and what is an egregore as it's being built. And the idea that I'm kind of getting at as we build this kind of topic up, and I think it's really cool how it just organically went to Aaliyah, is that I think it's really important to one thing, all you seekers, magicians, sorcerers, whatever it is, you alchemists, all of you out there who are looking to take control and build up from a sturdy foundation and be able to manipulate the elements and all the chaos around you, is to the initial flip of what it means to think that there is magic in all things. And so what ends up happening when you start taking on, and I think one of the best representations of that is like Alan Moore, for when he turned 40, brought all his friends together, and he did one of the most outrageous things anybody could do, especially in that time frame, is that he declared himself a magician. And then on his life, it was been built off of this very magical act. And I think what happens is when you start to understand that it was first consciousness, and everything else is zoomed out from that initial idea of consciousness into the world instead of materiality, and then it just catches, or is like consciousness is created from the material, is what I'm getting at, is this idea that where your attention flows, energy goes. In Chinese martial arts, Tai Chi or your Qigong, it's your Yi leads your Qi. And it's the idea is that where you attend upon things, where you move your energy towards, you start to, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So even your obsessions, your attention, your intention, your love of a character, your hate of a character, it all goes somewhere. And so when we build up these young individuals like an Aaliyah from the ground up, right? Hollywood takes her and does his thing to make these people a star, no matter if it's their music or not, or their ideas or not. And upon that, you're thrusting this individual into the spotlight, like on an altar, right? The ritual of enlightenment, but it's an inverted enlightenment. And what I mean by that is these people don't get to be built up through time in understanding, like say some of the Disney kids do from youth all the way up. But the idea is that when we're going through our magical practices, you start training to have your body be able to take on energy. So that's why you do things like your 8 limbs of yoga, and you want to first have a good moral ethical structure, and from there you build up your hatha yoga, your asana, so your body can be able to sit still for far too long and take all the pangs away, and then you understand your breath, and then from there you can begin your magical journey of training the will. But what's going on is think that magic isn't just in this small little room on a pillow or in your temple or whatever it is. Magic is all things everywhere. So if we can have the understanding of how to break the egregore, how to break yourself from the egregore, to do it consciously, is to take yourself away from the Hollywoodization of your own unconscious and take control of that. That doesn't mean you don't have to watch these things. I still watch these things, but it's knowing that you're away from it and you're not feeding into it, because you can start understanding what it looks like to see the shadows on the wall. Yeah.
No, you're right, Brandon. Look, this is the thing. I'm against all celebrities, I think what I was trying to say with the Aaliyah thing is I think that marked a distinct, there's a clear shift after she passed away, after Left Eye died, after Kurt Cobain died. I'm not even the biggest grunge, post-grunge person, but obviously shoegaze does come from a little bit of that sound. So I pay homage to that. But for me, I do think there was these shifts in celebrity and what they became, and I think the idea of the Disney kids is exactly that. I think that it was something very, I hate to say sinister, but it kind of is sinister because a lot of those kids are very fucked up.
Yeah,
and I'm not even saying that anything. I don't know what happened to any of them. But there was something with Disney, a Disney Club or the Mickey Mouse Club, and that was kind of like an MK. I know that's everyone says it, and it's so overdone. And Courtney Love, her dad was clearly some kind of psy war agent and some kind of drug dealer, multinational drug dealer, and pimping out his kid to move this ecstasy and methamphetamines and all this shit. What 14-year-old kid shows up in Japan with a suitcase full of party drugs?
Yeah, that's
Israeli manufactured party drugs.
Right.
So it's kind of fucked up. Yeah. So I just think that I think when you look at this, it's culture as a whole, culture creation. When you look at these kind of networks of culture, where they're arising from, they're obviously going to have an exterior face, a tripartite face, which is the shiny, happy Hollywood, the couples, the red carpet, the award shows. And then it has its seedy, bina underbelly, that it's the obscuration of it, which is drugs, promiscuity, and all the, death and murder and occultism and all of that. I mean, that is literally in everything. Excuse me, I have the hiccups again. I don't know. Someone's obviously thinking of me. And
somebody's thinking of you.
Right. So anyways, moving on with that. But that's going to be in everything. And who controls what? Is the tripartite element in control, or is the obscuration of Bina, the husk of Bina? Is that what's in control of the industry? Well, it's more complicated than that, I think. But I think you can also say that it's both at the same time. So it's moneyed interests. Moneyed interests always have other goals than are apparent at face value. And I think that celebrity is probably, for me, I'm a very anti-celebrity. So I think not putting your loosh into celebrity
Yeah.
culture is beneficial for the vast majority of people. But a lot of people do not, they don't really like when people say things like that, because it
Yeah.
sounds like you're telling them they can enjoy things, they can have their
Yes, I
treats,
know.
they can have their snack, they can have their, you know, they can have
Yeah.
their like little their things that they enjoy, their Netflix and chill. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that I do think that celebrity is very, very much a displacement, a projection of those Tipperatic energies that you should actually be building and propagating in yourself.
Yeah. Yes, but not but doing yes, and why the celebrity term is the negation of what it means to actually embody true hero's journey godhood is because the celebrity is hollow. The celebrity doesn't have an aspect of their own being that then moves through the world with agency. You have an agent, not agency. And I know that even when I say that, it sounds like I'm some fucking geometric bro who's continually trying to relate things with words to other words. But if it's really important to know how, you know, our language is used to construct reality, as Marshall McLuhan talks about in the medium is the massage. It's this very idea, and it comes back to this thing where MTV, you're right, Jugs, is MTV changed the game. And now do kids these days even know what MTV was? I remember walking through the room when my uncles, who were the ones who kind of taught me about grunge and heavy metal and the counterculture of that time. Interesting enough, that very counterculture has been overtaken, and now those who are raging against the machine are raging for the machine and trying to push us into changing our agency. But the idea was I'd walk through the room and they were listening and watching, you know, Parable into Parabola by Tool, or seeing Pearl Jam, which, interesting enough, this fucking name Pearl Jam, if you've been on X anywhere today, or everyone for some reason is saying exactly what, you know, why they created the name Pearl Jam, because of some sexual act. It's like, where do these things come from? Is this a Chinese bot? Is this Israel botting us? Like, isn't it fascinating that they're all pushing the same things all over the place at this very time? And so it goes back to the idea of what is an egregore? What are these autonomous entities outside of ourselves who have their own agency, these ideas that have been taken form? And are they the ones moving the chessboard? And so I want to bring up this idea of the old ones, the ancient ones, because everyone wants to throw around God names at all times, especially for the ones that seem to be more on the kleptotic side, the side for the negation of being, that dark seed, if we want to use the DC bad guy who is the negation of life, the anti-life equation. And so what is this idea of the old ones, the ancient ones, the Lovecraftian mythos that, even though he himself was more of a nihilist and different things like that, and whatever, all a bigot and whatnot, none of those things really matter. But the idea is the thing that he was tapping into, this Yog Sothoth, or the Cthulhu, or any of those old ones who live on the very outside of the universe, outside in the dark zones and the negative zones and the pure blackness. Those things are the eldest of these emotions that we harbor, the repressed emotions in the unconscious mind, the fear, the despair, the distaste. And what if these old beings, these ancient old ones, which we could maybe deem egregores at the largest extent, because if you think about it, the idea that you know, these gods were all created in the minds of men, It's the idea that we just have to change our thinking. These things aren't created. Nothing is created nor destroyed. All things are but discovery of consciousness understanding itself. And when it does that, it creates darkness. And that darkness is so things can bloom into it. And so it's how do we shift our understanding of reality itself to see exactly what we are repressing is exploding out the top of our head right now, and we're seeing it splattered all over the black mirrors of our unconscious mind. It is all over the place. Don't you think so, Jin?
So as we open, maybe this is interesting. Maybe this is like a perfect Kabbalistic tie-in, as Matt Murrah often says happens on the Grey Lodge, because whenever we bring up Kabbalistic concepts, it seems to be a reoccurrent theme throughout an episode or throughout the week.
Yeah.
As I said, I personally believe that a lot of these ideas come from Chokmah. They're ideas that maybe are primordial, you could even say. That's even one way to understand Chokmah as primordial wisdom. So you could say like 40,000 years ago when we were shamans in a cave, playing with ochre and datura and don't do that at home. And like all of that stuff, I think that perhaps we believe that, well, maybe it's real. Maybe there are abyssal gods like way out there in the negative space, in the margins, in the interstitial zones. Or they believed through psychedelic or entheogenic or Sephirotic experiences, because you do see things like that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, do you have to call them abyssal gods? No. Do you have to recognize them as Lovecraftian? No. There are multiple ways, there are multiple views to understand what you are seeing.
Yes.
It cannot be simply contained in a narrative. But I would argue that Lovecraft was indeed drawing from these kind of forgotten, we'll call them forgotten gods, these abyssal gods that, he kind of came up with new names based on the Necronomicon or the fake Necronomicon or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter their names. It doesn't even matter their original names. It just matters that he kind of put them in a klipa. That doesn't mean anything evil or bad. It just means he gave them a name,
Right.
put them in a shell, and described what they are. So they were vessels. His works are vessels for these actually real, quote unquote, real things. But they don't necessarily have to be real either. They can be imaginal. But they become more real, which is what an egregore is, the more we believe in them and the more we worship them. Worship them does not just mean in a religious setting. Right. That is what a lot of normies and normgroids and rightists and leftists and anti-occultists get wrong on Twitter. Like every single day you see it. To do magic has nothing to do with sitting in a church or not sitting in a church or doing a black mass in a church or doing a white mass in a church or being naked in the golden dawn with like your friends in the woods. That's not doing magic either. That has nothing to do with it. It's not about the kind of like setting. It is simply about the mindscape.
Yeah.
So, if you're believing in these things as real, if you're buying figurines, that was a big part of my childhood. Like in the 90s, I had a lot of like X-Men figures. You're kind of giving them a vessel. You're kind of giving those things a home. You're carrying their names with them through time and space, because you think about them and you are time and space in many ways. And you have the imagination. You have the consciousness to project, the Hesed, to project outwardly and make those things quote unquote real. I'm sure Brandon used to do this. I don't know for a fact, but I'll say that young Jin used to do this, young Jinskis. He would make crazy sounds and fight the characters together and come up with elaborate scenarios and do sound effects and all that. And that is all part of that. Like it is Hesed. Like I know people are going to be like, what? That's Hesed? Yeah, partly it is. It's giving life, the breath of life, to those things that we perceive directly in our vision. And that's why a lot of boys do that. I'm sure girls do that too. I used to do that with my sister's Barbies. I'm not saying anything weird. I used to do these really complicated narrative storylines where the GI Joes would round up the Barbies and they would have like a witch burning. And so I ended up melting a lot of them and doing like I made little films and shit. So that's basically was my story. Now I sound like a serial killer, but anyways, the whole point is there was many times a Barbie slumber party massacre. not always by GI Joes. Sometimes it would be Blanca. If people remember Blanca from Street Fighter,
Oh, for
they
sure.
made a 13-inch Blanca doll. He would obviously go in and like rip them all to shreds and tear off their heads and stuff. So,
Well, no,
anyways,
I love that you brought that to there, because the idea is I will tell you exactly what I did. I completely was play acting the Platonic demiurge as a child, and I think we all do that. And I think that's so fascinating, is I don't know if kids do this kind of thing anymore, and it comes up a lot in conversation, even when I'm with my family, and how we all seem to be turning into boomers. The older we get, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, and you're right. There were signs. There were definitely signs there, my friend. Like the idea so for me, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman, these characters, and then I would maybe like take my uncle's GI Joes from back in the day. But for me, Ninja Turtles, Batman, Transformers, I would completely create using my sister's like doll houses and things like that, and whatever she had. And I grew up on the farm, so we had like old farm barns for toys and things like that. And then I would create elaborate, my own animated Batman series with all my toys, creating dialogues and then all these things. And then, the older we get, the more I start writing and doing my own thing, and then wanting to create a comic book. And then you start writing scripts, and all of a sudden we're doing this along with the other creative ventures that we do. But I think it's really important to understand that these are all integrated into the same thing. And it's like we're always talking about the same things in different formats. If the medium is the message, that medium is getting across. The message is getting across through different mediums at the same time. So for you and I, Jin, at a young age, us obviously, you and I are very close in age. It's like in that time frame, we were taking our action figures and making better stories than were going on in that time frame, even though were some of the best. But you and I didn't have all of the, we had Saturday morning cartoons and all these things. And then, later in the mid 90s to late 90s, you get Dragon Ball and all the different anime that was coming out. But that was the live action anime. That was the live action superheroes as we were creating and becoming our own demiurge. Now what we have to understand is that those demiurgic figures has been poisoned, and so everybody knows out there, the Platonic demiurge in the Timaeus isn't an evil creator deity. She's just using what he has to create the world. And I think that's a great metaphor of understanding, because when you get to the more certain sects of Gnosticism, that's when they start to see the idea of the material body being evil and bad. And when you start doing that, you can start having this split that happens 1,000 years before the actual dualistic understanding of nature and reality happens with Cartesianism, and then you get the whole Enlightenment period. And it's like, how the fuck did you just get in talking about the Enlightenment period from a kid in his room playing with action figures? And I'm like, it's really simple. This was a complete embodied act of play acting in the moment. I was expressing out through using the 30-second path of the world, right? 32nd path is the world card in the major arcana. And then you're moving into Yasad. I'm going through and into the imaginal realms and creating worlds. And I want to change creating to discovering. I was discovering these worlds, but as a kid, you don't know you're doing that. You are but creating what you can understand. And so I think it's fascinating to see how through time we have. And this is a cyclical thing, because they did it in Greece and they did it in Sumeria and they've done it in every major. The one thing that hasn't changed is that we are humans and we're flawed. And that flaw is there, so we can try. So consciousness itself can play itself through us all, right? The Brahma moves through all things as we all are, but the face, Shiva is just using himself in many different faces. Is that then we see celebrity as a cult, and that celebrity is hollow. And what's hollow and being moved into them is that they are now being used for play and this dark drama at this time, which is unfolding, this blood sacrifices that are going on. And it doesn't even have to be the bad things of like killing and the Epstein stuff and everything that's going on, but just somebody being born and now their soul has been taken from them, trapped into something that they have to then go find, and most of the time they never will. Like, what kind of karma are they accruing in these things?
Okay, so I'm going to go in a totally different direction, but it's something interesting and it definitely relates to our discussion.
Please.
But it's not directly responding to what you just said. But
Thank you,
kind of.
Stitches. Yeah, okay, nice.
Okay, so SMS brought up the idea of Buffy Summers as the Aeon of the Daughter. So I actually think this is really interesting because there were several series. It wasn't
Stop,
Buffy.
real quick. I need to say this. Bro, same thing, just so you know. Polly Pockets, I had Mad Max. Thank you. Go on, Jin.
Well, okay, so there was one time so I've talked about this in the group chat before, but our school, the school I went to, was private school, so we had to do these senior every year we had a thesis that we presented in front of the whole upper school. Okay, so like grade 9 through 12, which everyone else would call high school, but it's like everyone is there, so that's your upper school.
Yeah.
So I did these art dioramas of like crucifixion and like of women, basically, like very serial killer. But yeah, I did do that. But it wasn't really. I was really going through like a very like Simone de Beauvoir. Like I was trying to like explore this like idea of like male violence, female divinity, and also like what is the Bible taken through this lens of like the female prophets as well as like obviously Mary Magdalene, who is the penultimate Anne of the Daughter archetype.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, I just wanted to add that. But yeah, okay, so that happened. And yeah, they got really upset with my senior thesis because I did one in like with barbed wire and I put blood on it, and anyways, we won't go into it, but it was cool. Like I'm not saying it wasn't cool. It was cool and it looked great. It just was a little too much. Okay.
No, I like that.
Now it would have been great. Now would have been fine. Would have been totally viral. I used to film these dioramas with the pink Ferrari, and I would do like or not dioramas. I would film like these little micro sequences and post them on YouTube. This was like the earliest days of YouTube. It was like murder. We called them like murder Barbie, and like all this shit. Anyways.
Okay. No, I love that. Buffy Summers. That. Yeah, Buffy Summers. But first, I want to answer this. So, is the key to defeating the demiurge to become his friend via playing the game of life? Beautiful. I actually couldn't have said it better than myself. Yeah, become his friend, become his cohort, thus becoming it itself. I think it's raising up, right? Go on.
Sorry, Brandon. I apologize. That was my bad.
No, it's okay.
Who is the like? I like that. Like, but I like what you said. It was like, but who is the demiurge?
Yeah.
Like, this is what a lot of people get wrong when they're looking at Gnosticism in general. There's a lot of demiurges. There's not just one. It's not just like it's not just like the ruler of the
just not Yaldabaoth, right? Samuel Yaldabaoth.
And is he even a bad guy? Is Yaldabaoth even the bad guy?
Well, technically, yes, that is, yes. Yeah. It depends on what you're reading. And that goes back to making sure we understand the shadows on the wall as just narrations. And each narration gives us a different subset of understanding, thus being able to give us a new metaphor to experience these things with. Because in our actual experiential understanding of the world, the people who are doing these things to these celebrities are themselves could be denoted as actually being evil at certain levels. They're like terrible, terrible people. And their sins will be shown to them as they walk through the halls of Osiris into Mot, right? As Anubis carries them forward, their heart will be weighed. And so and it will then, I think, at times be dealt to them in this actual lifetime. Because there is only one lifetime. I want to state that also as well. It's like these reverberations of lifetime. I think it's really funny that we always want to talk about what my past lives were when we can't even understand our current life frame. And so it's not that I don't believe in past lives, or obviously I believe in karma and these things, but can we just talk about this one time right now that forever reverberates into the all thing, right? And so, yeah, go on.
Well, no, you're totally right, Brandon. And I want to shout out Freighter RC. So shout out Freighter RC.
Shout out Freighter.
Thank you so much, Freighter RC.
Always violating terms on Facebook or whatever it is. He's always being in trouble from the algorithmic demagogue. And please post. That's what I'm saying. Comments. We love comments to play with.
Okay, Cassandra. Now Jin is trying to redeem himself with the Skywives. This is likely true, I murdered many Barbies. There's a graveyard of carnal ground of Barbies behind me. Literally, probably hundreds. I'm not even kidding. I'm melted and buried somewhere in the Midwest. So I'll
Oh my
just leave
God,
that as a
you're
teaser.
so ridiculous.
Like a cartel member. Anyway, but they died very keynote death, very cinematic. So it's all for it's all worth it. But anyways, I think the point is Buffy Summers. Why don't we change tack? Buffy Summers. You're talking about the shadows on the wall. There's actually an episode of Buffy in the fourth or fifth season, maybe later. The bad part of the season, the bad part of the show. Buffy is really only just for everyone who's not familiar with the series. Buffy's really only good for 3 seasons, and then it should have ended.
I watched every single one of them afterwards, though, because I like the silly things when they're doing musicals.
It's supernatural. It's exactly what you and I would like. It's vampire slaying. It's martial arts. It's really good choreography. A lot of the episodes.
Joss Whedon, even though he's a fucking touchy.
And the writing was funny at times. But I will say, for me in particular, thank you so much, Frater.
Thank you, Frater.
Appreciate it. Awesome.
Thank you, Frater.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Second, so CM Brandon, I am good luck.
You are good luck.
Super chats.
You all are great out there. I thank you so much. You're just giving us that energy and fire to try to help, reconnect us to the carnal grounds. We're going to dig up all the past Barbies that Jin dug away.
I think Crystal knows where I went to high school, so maybe Crystal can find them. She is very psychic. There is someone else who does know I went to high school, although I doubt that he would probably care. Anyways, but there is somewhere in that vicinity of where I went to high school. There is at least for 2 years where there is some mass grave somewhere in the woods. Okay, Buffy Summers.
Yeah.
There's an episode where she is talking about the first Slayer. The first Slayer was made by 4 shamans, 4 medicine men, African medicine men, North African, very Kabbalistic, Sufi kind of thing. Although it didn't really express that, it was more primordial, more like witch doctor types. But they bonded a virginal girl to to an original demon. So if you watch Buffy, there's actually an interesting cosmology of demons that vampires are not. They are demons, but they are not related to the first demons. They are a corruption.
Yeah.
They are a hybrid. The demons themselves become more humanized the longer that they are in the world, and the demons of the original, the Abyssal gods, to bring up the Lovecraft gods, maybe those are the original demons. So they're retreated from the world. Thank you so much, Frater.
Frater just crushing right now. Awesome. Happy 420, hitting that Zep. Love that.
Awesome. Okay, so Buffy, what was I saying? Oh, okay. Abyssal gods. So the Abyssal gods are the original demons, and so they actually sort of capture a piece or like a tentacle or whatever of the original demon, and they attach it to the soul using magic of this young girl. And from then on, a girl is born in all the world, she who will slay the vampires. That's the whole idea. That is kind of
I love that. And
very Aonic.
Yeah.
And so
the daughter wakes up from Malkuth, from the kingdom, to understand her journey that she must take for death. And that's what you find out in the story itself, is that she is deemed to die, and that's why she was born. So then the reincarnation period of the vampire slayer could continue through time. And then she does die, and then you get
requires her death to start the cycle.
Start the cycle again.
Malkuth must die. Now, if we are speculative Kabbalists, like Brandon and I are very speculative Kabbalists and speculative magicians, the bride of Malkuth does not have to die. It's just a conceptual idea. It means that the sort of innocence, the breaking of the klipa, of the understanding, or the greater, view of the universe is expanded. You can see the multiverse in front of you because you are Hode-like and you are able to call the names of things. The bride of Malkuth does not know the names of things. She does not know about what the demons on the wall are. She does not understand that the demons on the wall, the shadows on the cave, which is exactly how that episode depicts this whole act that I've described, in a cave and like shadows on the wall, they also are the reflection of men's souls. So obviously I'm a Buddhist. I don't believe in a fixed soul. That's fine if you do. There's no issue. There's no paradox. We're just accepting each other, having different, slightly different worldviews, but we're all touching on a similar thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's what I mean is that the soul, like the spirits, you could even say the spirits of men, they can be corrupted. They can be like those Cthulhu. They can look like the shadows on the wall. They don't have to look like monsters. And this is a big theme in the whole series of Buffy. Now, I will also say, I don't really like the series. I know, the controversial for a millennial. It's not that I think it's a bad series. I just don't, it just doesn't interest me at all. But what the movie, I love. I think the Joss Whedon movie with Christy Swanson.
Oh, it's so amazing. That's one of my favorite of all time. Yes,
I
yes.
agree. It
Nice.
captures Buffy. That is like Buffy in a nutshell. That is what Buffy should be. It's camp. It's SoCal. It is Valley. It is interesting language. Remember, language is magic. Language is the power of the poet. So when she's coining new words, there's a chaos magic element in that. It created a whole dialect of speech. That's very interesting for me as a magician. And just the whole movie is great. And even the idea of the vampires. And you don't even have this idea so much of reincarnation particularly.
No.
You have it more that she is actually returning as herself.
Yep.
She dies, she returns as herself. In the series,
stronger
they are
variation.
already alive. They're kind of like sparks in a long causal chain.
Yeah. And it awakens in them. And awakens in them. All of a sudden they have the power of the vampire slayer. And then you get the counteraction in that series where all of a sudden there's two of them and this overrunning of egos and they cause chaos through the world and all these different things. Yeah, the movie, the Buffy Vampire Slayer, the movie, I as much as it may not hold up, there were funny parts, there were serious parts. You really get to see what the like
I think it holds up.
Do you think it does? Okay, that's fantastic.
It's great. I think it's totally camp. I think that it's very
total
much
camp,
of like millennial news.
And Stella, you can definitely. Problem. I loved Buffy and like you should rewatch the movie.
Oh,
you did? Nice.
Not on my show. On my friend Vicky's show. If the show didn't unfortunately continue past like 4 episodes, as many shows don't. But it was a great episode, and I loved doing it. And I love that movie. Just like I love the Craft movie. I think that's a great movie. I think people I did an episode on the Craft movie with my friend Q, who has a really popular podcast called Twink Death. But so you can go listen to that on my feed on I call it Invoking the Spirit. I think it was episode 11. So one of the first episodes on my show. But anyways,
the Craft, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, the Craft is not a great movie, but it is a movie with greatness. And what I mean by that is that it's like you get to see, and what's funny is we both obviously know and dislike this new agey witch talk world and different things like that. So we got to realize where that kind of broke free from. And it's the egregore of the witch, which the Craft definitely put out there as well as a Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And so you're getting
to do that. I had there was because I was a goth. I was totally goth back then. Like I don't care. I painted my nails black, like everything. I didn't wear any makeup or anything. I would never do that. My parents would actually murder me, and I didn't want to. But I did paint my nails black. This was way before Machine Gun Kelly and all that shit. Okay, this was like, I was a little bit of a mall goth, like Hot Topic mall goth. But who cares? Okay.
Yeah.
The point is like we wore uniforms to school. I was nominally Catholic, and so it was like you could do all the accoutrement of the Craft. Like we could reproduce it.
Yeah.
And like the girls wore a little Catholic schoolgirl. I mean, they were Catholic school, but they wore little skirts and cardigans and all that stuff. So we could reproduce some of the elements of the film, and the girls often would. I'm not saying I participated or didn't participate in it, but I'm just saying that there were scenes that I distinctly recall, like through the courtyard and different things, where I definitely reproduced the Kino in a particular way, the scene at least, in through time and space. So I think it's a great film. I agree that it created this egregore that I was very annoyed with also at the time, of like what we thought was like the fake witch, or this like kind of new age witch. But a lot of new age practices, you know what? I'm not a new age person. I've said it many times on my own show, on Rejects, on here, on the Grey Lodge, many, many times. I'm a pretty serious tantric, a pretty serious Kabbalist. But there is something to be said. New Age practices introduce people to a lot of deeper metaphysical ideas.
Yeah, I mean that's how I got introduced to it. Besides 4 hits of high-powered blotter acid and 10,000 and lateralis in 10,000 days, but then all of a sudden you're looking for something, right? You're just out there in the world, and all you're getting is the hollow ticks and leeches husks of what. It's like the dregs of Blavatsky is being like slammed into your face, and you're all like, well, this is new and exciting and not Christianity, and so maybe truth here. I mean, how many people did these, and then all of a sudden I don't know, it's just such a fascinating thing going on that and again, it's like I hate on it because of we all need to be avatars of guiding the way from something that we've experienced. It's like I've been there now, just realize that is an illusion, and that illusion can lead you to deeper work, which is actually the work instead of the hairy-fairy stuff, because you're going to come along this path and find demons and dragons, and you're going to have to learn how to protect yourself and learn how to train your mind when all of the distractions and bread and circuses of the world are going on. It's just so important that you understand that that there's deeper work to be done. It's like going from Harry Potter to Lord of the Rings to Dune to all of a sudden you're reading Homer. And you're all like, there seems to be some kind of thing called truth here between these stories. And I really enjoyed the Harry Potter magical thing. But now when I got deeper into it, I can understand a different level of magic from Lord of Rings. And all of a sudden you're like, what is Paul Muad'Dib going through as he's breaking free, drinking this water of life and trying to like understand the golden path, which is very similar to the golden thread of the Western esoteric, Eastern mystical traditions? Fucking wild.
Okay, so this is my experience with Dune. I know everybody loves Dune currently. I was into Dune in high school. Dune was not considered cool. It was considered like old man 70s sci-fi, not cool at all, not popular. They did make an amazing sci-fi movie from 2004. I'm talking about the Sci-Fi Channel, which in Canada was called the Space Channel. They made a movie with Susan Sarandon. Yes, she's a lit card. Who cares?
Who cares? Bowflex.
Anyway, she was a Bene Gesserit. It was a great movie. So that's my experience with Dune. My experience with Dune is old man, I guess, from the early 2000s. It's not contemporary. But there was a different film that was really important to me as a kid, which was, I think the year I graduated high school, maybe a year before, but Curandero. So it came out in 2005. Yes, I did take AP Spanish. I did take AP French, obviously, as well. But
holy shit!
So we watched it. So we watched Curandero.
What are you saying?
Me?
Yeah. What's the word? What's the name?
Curandero.
What the fuck is that?
That means a healer or a wizard. Well, a hechizero is really a wizard, but a curandero is kind of the light worker.
Is that Indonesian?
No, that's Spanish.
Oh, okay. See, this is how much I know about. So, okay, great. Go on.
That's the story, Brandon. So, curandero is like a white wizard or a white shaman. Okay, and so he has to fight a brujo, who is a black shaman. Mm-hmm. So it's a great movie. It's very hard to find. It's even hard to find.
I could have guessed it after you said brujo, because I do know that's Hispanic. Okay, go on.
So basically, it's based on that serial killer from Mexico in the 90s. The guy who was practiced Palo Mayombe, and he would like sacrifice people and many animals. Please don't do that. And so this,
we do not promote sacrificing of things at this channel besides your own ego. Okay.
Yes, I agree. And yes, Judd, we do learn French, and my mom is French as well. So that is why Quebecois. So yeah, I know all the Americans make fun of us. Yeah. French Canadians. Yeah. Okay.
There are only Americans. There are only Americans. Make America great again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, vive le Quebec. Anyways, so yeah, Curandero. So it's a great film. It introduces you to a lot of like very esoteric, sort of Spanish conceptual ideas. I was a big cinema person. I didn't really. I know this made me sound like a loser. I had friends, but I was not a group. I'm not into groups, and I'm still not really. So I was always better on my own. So like my time was always spent like watching, like the things I wanted to do was not conducive to group activities either. I wasn't like gonna go watch some, Hollywood movie with you at the theater with a group of kids. I wanted to watch like Spanish movies like Thesis, which is like another good horror movie, great horror movie, very meta. It's very like Scream. If you like Scream, then that kind of like meta horror where it's like it's about cinema. It's a film about film. It's a film about horror film. That's a great film. Anyways, what I'm saying is like I would watch these kind of weird. They weren't weird, but they were like European. Was at a time when it wasn't that popular to watch those things. It made you kind of look weird or look like you're highbrow or whatever, you're snob. So I would watch these things like Curandero, and I would kind of accumulate all this like little bits of knowledge where, I'd want to see what more of the practices were about and more of the ideas were about. Not snuff films. I'm not talking about Thesis necessarily, but I did take there is a pre-Hitchcock film about like making a snuff film that uses, I think, a Rear Window. I think that's what it's called. I watched it in university like 10 million years ago, but anyways, I can't remember. But it's like that all the roads lead to like higher knowledge. All the roads lead to death. So basically, you sort of like accumulate this experiences through the simulacra of cinema. So there's an egregore in cinema itself, but it also is self-reflexive. It also can lead you to higher knowledge, but it's like, what do you do with that knowledge? Some people would watch like a movie like Curandero where it shows like Palomayombe and human sacrifice and animal sacrifice and be like, yeah, man, that looks so cool. Like, let's go do that. I hate Daddy God. Like, he is a bad guy. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't be like Headless Giant. Like, actually, like, reconcile yourself and figure your shit out. And just because your daddy's a preacher, like that doesn't mean anything in the greater scheme of it. So I'm just saying that like you don't have to emulate it just because you see it. Maybe the seeing it, as Stella said, is the hermeneutic. That is the star gate. That's the first gate that you must walk through, the bride of Malkuth. You are introduced to these carnal ground ideas. And so how do you take of them? Just like with the Sephira. Just like with the Klipa, how do you take of them? Do you take of them as inherently transgressive? Do you take of them as inherently positive? Some people do take of them as like, this is the way the world should be.
Yeah.
And as the other people take up, this is what I'm going to do to the world because I need to transgress against the world. For me, I tend to think of it as, okay, these are the conceptual frameworks, the conceptual ideas of magic. We are in 2026. I'm not saying that history is on a linear or progressive trajectory. I don't believe that. I'm an axialist. But I do believe that there can be moments of generation where we actually look at things and say, okay, these are all the conceptual ideas. Let's see what works and what doesn't work. Meaning that, like, what are the deeper layers of magical ideas that are found in these quote unquote folk practices, simulacrums of magic. Cinema is magic. Cinema itself is magic. That's what makes cinema meta.
Yeah.
That's what makes it meta magical. Because cinema itself is a hermeneutic. It is literally the diamond. It is the light passing through Netzach with the colors of Hode. right? The celluloid. I'm talking about celluloid. Obviously, digital film is something totally different, very Ketu, very smoky like, very
Yeah, yeah.
delusory.
Well, it's
But
the form meets function again of the two opposite extremes, so it can create the holographic nature of whatever the power that's moving through it, right?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, you're totally right. Sorry, my apologies, Brandon. I muted myself.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, the reality is like cinema is a hermeneutic. That can also produce an egregore, obviously, but like really, it's what Brandon is saying. It's like, do the actors become quote unquote stars? This is something that Brandon and I have spoken about when we weren't speaking about celebrities at all. We were talking about the
Yeah.
Sephiroth, and we were saying like, there's a way to understand the Sephiroth as empty. The individual Sephira are empty, very star-like. That does not mean nothing exists. That means that it's a negative space that is illuminant, massless, and illuminant. So that's why we call stars stars, because they become vessels for our desires, our wishes. They become
There you
characters,
go.
the GI Joes who
Yeah.
slaughtered all those Barbies. I'm blaming the GI Joes for doing
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
not me. I was
No,
not
no,
the operator.
it was the archetype of the military industrial complex moving
Right,
through you
right,
to
right,
slaughter that level of femininity.
right. But they were evil witches. Just let me
Well,
be
obviously.
clear. In
Yeah.
the role play, they were evil witches. They weren't good ones. They weren't good ones. Okay.
Yeah, of
They
course.
weren't like Wiccans on the mountain. They were
Yeah.
they were like evil witches. So, like all
Yeah.
the. You'd ever watch like Melissa Milano? She was like in one of those movies where she went to like a convent school where all the girls were like lesbian, sapphic witches.
Yeah.
That's the kind of sickness we're talking about here, where this is the kind of intricacies of role play that it would go through, sort of the movements of my own Kino. But anyways, the point is, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Let me add to the point, because I think this is what he was getting at as he's moving back and forth through the days of 420 quite beautifully, is to understand how what we do in a Jungian sense is we want to project our own like repressed levels of mind onto other things. And I think one of the easiest examples of stardom and this level of projection is when we as the masculine project our anima onto the feminine, or the feminine project their animus, their inner masculine, onto their partners. And the partners is yes, you're in a loving relationship, you're trying to get into one, and you're trying to find the one, right? And what we're building and constructing the one off of seems to be every relationship we've ever witnessed in our entire life, from good to bad, to our families, our parents, and to definitely the brainwash mechanisms of Disney and the great pedo mouse. And so let's really, really understand what I mean by that. And the idea is that we have this fairy tale notion of what is real and what is real love. And I think it's really interesting that those stories have stemmed from a level of beauty and the aesthetic and the forms that Plato is really getting at, that is then being represented in either a very more harmonious faction or in a very dissonant faction. And so you're getting great archetypical mimesis and representation into the actual world, which is a harmonious triad, the great Trinity, the greatest of all trinities. It would be that Platonic Trinity that we're trying, the tripartite soul, trying to find a harmony of these three attributes within, so we can understand it in a society, thus understanding it in the broader scheme of things. But to going back to how then we project these things onto people. So we're not even doing that to our loved ones, which we're doing every day. And unless you're on the path, no matter what that is, you don't even have to be a walking, talking magician and speak the lingo, or a sorcerer or a Buddhist or cultist or whatever this is. You could just be an individual who is actually just looking to better themselves. And maybe then you can have a good understanding of contemplation or reflection. But if you're not doing that, then what we are doing, and you can see it when people care about such things as I was making this thumbnail, one of the first things that came up as I was thinking about, because this happens, right? You're coming up with an idea, and you and I had already come up with this idea at the last stream, and we're like, let's do this. You're like, this would be great. I'm like, that's great. I'll come up with a title, and I came up with this title. But as I was coming up with this title in the thumbnail, the first thing that popped up in this idea was the fucking Emmy, Grammy, Oscar. And the funny thing was I had to ask Kaiva, I was like, hey, do you know the difference between the Emmys, the Grammys, and the Oscars? Because her and I obviously don't watch these things. I don't even remember the last time I've seen anything like that, nor do I know the differentiation between these three things, because I'm trying to find symbols. Thus, the symbol that you see is the golden god standing upon the altar with his sword, or all of a sudden you get a globe, and you're getting these very motific demigod / godlike structures that is actually telling us. And on the thumbnail, you can see it, the 5-pointed star with the tip pointing upwards towards the divine or the spirit, with all 4 elements, which are the lower realmed things that we must play with, that creates this experience that we're living upon. And that's very interesting. It's interesting to me because we have these 2 strains of thoughts now: the inner projection of the external, of the internal onto the external, as well as the very manipulation of reality as we see it. What is and how is the greatest way to make the future happen? And it is to impart into Hollywood that great wooden wand, the magic makers, and put everything you want the future to look like within these stories. You're not going to make a perfect relationship. You're going to make people struggle and then find the perfect relationship. And then it's going to end. And you realize that perfect relationship isn't real. Thus, it ends in dismay when it happens in this life. And you actually have to go on your own path and build up your own actual internal substance that it can move within the world, and you can become and have agency and not be led by an agent. Stop projecting and really do the hard work of internalizing, reflecting, and building that yogic structure, that magical and mystical structure. So then you are the great demiurge of your own landscape, and you are walking amongst other great demiurges, which then leads us back to Plato and the great philosopher kings. Those philosopher kings who then understand what is going on and to how to create a harmonious society, because they themselves have balanced and harmonized the tripartite soul.
Well, so I agree with you in a lot of ways, maybe not in every way, but a lot of ways.
Of course.
But I think that we need to come to a place of tiferet in and of ourselves, a balance.
Always.
Right? Middle path. That doesn't mean that we're right-hand path. That doesn't mean what we're left-hand path, but it means that we can draw from both.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be crazy in our labeling of those things with, we're not going to say like, oh, this is shite. We're going to be like, okay, we're going to actually appraise the ideas for what they are. And we're going to say, is this useful? Is this going to be generative? Is this going to be particularly relevant to how we have to do magic in 2026? I think that's how we should look at it. So I agree that like we need to come to a place of tiferet in and of ourselves. Now, greater prescriptions for society, I have zero. I am not I'm not a magician who's interested in them. Like, I don't have meta political goals. Now, I'm more Taoist when it comes to these things. I'm like, they're always going to be archonic or governmental state structures. I'm more libertarian. That's me. But they'll probably always exist in some fashion or capacity. And hopefully they're mostly benevolent, and you can only go so far with like a mass public though. And so there's different ideologies have different Kabbalistic implications too. Like democracy has all these Hasidic implications. It has very Tiferetic implications. It's probably not the best way to govern mass society, but neither is its sort of what is considered to be its opposing force, which is a kind of fascism, I guess you could say. Like, I know that word is extremely overutilized, and like I have no political opinions in the sense that, like, as I said, I'm a Taoist. I'm happy on my mountain. If my my homies or whatever want to come to live with me on the mountain, then that's what we shall do. I don't have like a thing where I'm like, let's be a world builder. I think that where we should be world builders are in our own minds. I think that is, if you want to say what my show is speculative ontology. So is yours, Brandon, in a way, especially when I'm on, obviously. And so, obviously. And so I think that the project is like we build our own stories and we like try and lay out, like I did with Aeon of the Daughter and all of that, is you try and lay out a way for people to live that is generative, fruitful, and in keeping with karma, however you understand that in particular. So I think that is a more interesting way than saying let's revisit like this thinker from like 1750 and like try and reconfigure the world in this exact way, which you're never going to do. It's always going to be imperfect. It will always have serious flaws. And as well, people are kind of dumb now. And maybe they've always been dumb, and maybe this is not even a new thing. And like as I said, I'm an axialist. So obviously I would not consider this a new phenomenon. Maybe people have always been dumb and maybe people are less worldly now. That's not even a bad thing. Sometimes people are less worldly, and that actually can be good for society, meaning that they are less aware of things happening outside of their own sphere, outside of their own Malkuth. Now, the internet makes it very hard to just think about things inside your own Malkuth, and that's okay to a degree, but you should only expand at your own will rather than expand in every particular facet. So, how do we want the new Aeon to go? Well, I think most people, regardless of partisan tendencies, most people are not going to agree with the quote unquote philosopher kings / skywives. most people do not care about agency, cultivating agency, or
yeah, they say that and then they complain every day about why their lives go their way, and it's all like, well, it's because you are not running your life. You know what I mean? It's like they don't care, but they do because that's what all they can worship and focus on, is that there's these characters out there that have agency and run their own lives. And this is how they do it. Most of them are fucking occultists. Fucking Taylor Swift is an occultist. She fucking does rituals, and that's what I'm saying. I hope they do, because it's like, why do you think she was fighting Tool for the Grammy position? It's because she's doing, funny enough, fucking dark magic and Tool's doing light magic. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Hers stays in the grumbling underground of all things. She has a fucking interview with her own husband, Mr. fucking Chiefs guy, and they are talking about. She's talking about fucking magic, bro.
That is a lavender marriage. I'm not being an asshole.
Of course it is.
I am not being an asshole. I swear it is. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is.
No, they were put together for sure.
It was definitely a arranged marriage. Yeah. I would have no problem saying that. It is. No question about that. I don't know what the nature of their relationship. So
obviously, no one does. Obviously, we don't either.
Not comment on it. But you know what? It is very weird. That situation is weird.
Yeah,
she is not like someone like that would naturally go for.
No,
it doesn't really make sense to me. It's kind of like a very weird pairing. I'm sure if Kaiva was here and she did their charts, she would agree. My intuition is saying that those two people are not really meant to be together.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, especially look at I've seen the images of like all his past exes. When it comes up on TikTok, they're all these people. It's just crazy. Are you kidding me? And then
there's
all
baddies.
This stick woman.
All exactly what you think they are. They are all Latinas with BBL. They are not like Taylor Swift. It's just not.
But it's because Taylor Swift's dad is fucking Anton LaVey, or the mom is Anton LaVey's daughter. That's not true, but it could be because they look exactly fucking alike. So it's either that is true, or they're clones.
We live amidst a eugenics cult.
Yes, we do.
Well, people will be like, "What is Jin talking about?" No, we live with certain elites who have propagated their seeds amidst the publics in hundreds, perhaps thousands of different offspring. That's the truth. I know people are like so freaked out by that. This is like the history of Southeast Asia. Like all the kings are like this. Like
Look at
this is not occulted. This is not like hidden.
No, it's not hidden anymore. And that goes back to our last episode of what even does it mean to be occulted. Look at this. Look at this, everyone. That's the same. That's the daughter and that's the mother.
I mean, they look alike, dude. Okay, they definitely look alike. I don't know.
I don't know.
All I know.
I don't know.
I do know okay, they look alike. But what the reality is not about that.
It's not.
Taylor Swift's dad was super rich, super connected. He bought her the first label, right? Like that's how she got. She's not that talented. I'm just being honest. No. Like I'm just being honest. She can play the guitar okay. She can't sing worth shit. She can't dance. I mean,
welcome, Lisa. Thank you.
You had a rich daddy. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Rich daddy. Cool. Okay. That's totally fine. Many such cases. So obviously he helped propel her to stardom. They played it really smart. They sold her catalog, but they already had millions and millions of dollars. This is not starting from foundation 1.
No, it's no, exactly.
From foundation 10.
Yes. It's the same thing with Mr. The Donald with his, he's like, no, he's a working man's guy. It's like, no, his father gave him $1 billion and said, good luck, or 100 million or whatever it is. So it's like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Or Jeff Bezos is the biggest one. This goes back to the cult of celebrity. And this whole talk is the same thing over and over again, is understanding that like they give you a mythology, a fake mythology. Jeff Bezos created Amazon in his garage. He's with books. Weird. Let's put books out there and let's sell them that way. When really look into it, and Jeff Bezos' grandpappy was one of the first heads of DARPA. And so this isn't new. Mark Zuckerberg just created Facebook. Look it's in a movie, social media movie or social network, wherever the fuck that movie's
that. It reifies the narrative, right?
Right. So,
like it reifies the narrative that they want to tell.
Yeah.
But that is what all history is. All history is this. This is not just soft propaganda, as they call it, like in cinema. This is all of media. This is not just America. I know Americans love to be like, yeah, our government's lying to us.
Oh, that's a good point.
They are. But like, you think it's any different in China? I'm not being a China hater. I'm really not. I'm saying that as someone who really knows Chinese cinema, like knows Chinese cinema to like a high degree. I probably could go do a PhD in Chinese cinema and not really have to take any classes, simply because I am I'm not saying I'm like a PhD quality scholar.
I'm not saying like I'm like a prodigy at Kabbalah or anything. That
is true. I am a Kabbalah prodigy. That's true. I am. But okay, maybe not a PhD quality Chinese cinema scholar, but I know a lot about it. I do know a lot about it, and niche subjects. So, anyways, I'm a little autistic.
I'm a little cool. My name is Jim. Okay. That's fine.
I am pretty cool. I'm pretty fucking schwy. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, look at his fucking glasses that he's wearing right now.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I am pretty schwy. We all know. Okay. Sky Daddy. Okay. So Freighter
Sky Daddy Radio.
I like that actually. We need to write that down and keep that our options open for our title. Anyways, top secret. So Freighter RC asked a great question. Is Daoism Daoism about immortality? So short, non-Jin answer is it can be. It depends on the sect. Daoism, it has many different schools, many different soteriological goals. It is like Buddhism. But the longer I stay in Buddhism, the longer I stay in Tantra, the more Buddhists that I meet online and off, I recognize that there are so many different understandings, and your own understanding of what something is sort of determines your outcomes in it.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
So Dharma for me has always been like a limitless. That's why I always call it Diamond Thunder. Like we're going across the ocean of Hesed as arrows or chariots, and we're crossing the hyperspace kingdom, the hyperspace archipelago. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
That's right. That is how I've always seen it. So for me, that is what Dharma is. But I know now that a lot of people have very limited ideas of what Dharma can be, what Dharma should be, how to package Dharma, how to hold Dharma in these like more traditional. And my way is not untraditional. My way is really not that untraditional. Yes, my language might be a little flexible, but it's really not untraditional. It is a lot more. It just is. I just take it in a very Hyperborean way. There's no other real way to say it. Okay, Freighter RC. So yes, there is a whole school of people who are looking for this thing called the golden nectar pill.
Yeah.
The golden nectar pill, even in and of itself, can be understood in different ways. And one of the ways, and actually, Freighter RC, you should actually have Paul Frederick from the Demonosophy podcast, whom I've had on twice with Solar Exile as my co-host. I've had him on my show. The second episode will be dropping. He wrote a book called The Second Awakening about how he had these like very similar to me. They're not the same, but they were kind of like higher magical experiences with this Taoist text, which I'm forgetting the name of. But if you read Paul Frederick's book, The Second Awakening, he talks about it. Okay, so you guys should do something that'd be interesting actually. But the point is like, yeah, there are sects that were looking to make this pill. Some sects believe that it was.
Is it The Secret of the Golden Flower? Is that?
Yes,
is it
Secret of the Golden
right?
Flower.
Is that what it is?
So yes,
yeah,
yes,
great book.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. So some sect schools believe that the pill can be created through magical metallurgy, gems. Like it's like a philosopher's stone kind of thing, but you make it with herbs and like different substances. So it's like material. Some sects believe that it was cultivated internally through sexual practices, sexual yoga. Yeah. Some sects and schools believe
Montauk Chia is pushing this.
Correct. Yeah. I wasn't going to say it, but yes.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. So, but then there are also schools that believe it was created through like breath work and tumo and diet and certain like exercises, including martial arts.
Yep.
So there's all different ways to understand like the goal of becoming a Xian or a Taoist immortal.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's not just one understanding. There's not just one way to go about it. And there was a lot of disagreement.
But that's the same as I'm going to let you finish, and then I have my own take.
No, I don't have anything. That's it, Brandon. Sorry,
okay.
I'm a, as someone said, notorious talker.
No, I love that. No, well, the thing is I was just going to continue. No, I love that. You gave me the right pause. We're learning, and I feel like I just wanted to make sure. So you're completely right, but it's the same thing that's going on in the Western esoteric system. It's just Taoist immortality is the Eastern take, their own thing that the West is trying to do with the Philosopher's Stone or the Holy Grail or any of that kind of lingo, the legends of ascending into the highest realms and walking around as the thrice great, or what the fuck is his name that I can't stand that they're always saying, like all these new agey people are saying they are the reincarnation of this character from like the Saint Germain. Right? These are all very similar linguistic and terms to give upon the immortality of the soul. And so, yes, it's like, I think you have to have both at the same time. It's not that you may reach the levels of physical immortality, but through, this is my take. And this is going to be a little hatey at times, and people are going to hate on me that I'm like a fat shamer or something like that. But something
for the record, we don't love fatties. I'm just saying. You can't skyfly if you're a fatty. I'm just saying.
Thank you. This is why we work so well together. What it is it's the idea is that you're trying to transmute all the layers of being, and your body is the temple and the outward extension of the soul that it represents. And the more you go through the alchemical journey and the practice of individuation through the powers of magic and mysticism, when you are on the path as the universe flows and opens to you, because magic is for all, what ends up happening is that as above, so below, so within, so without, your body and your soul mimic each other. And so your physical temple needs to be clean to be able to take on the kinds of transformation that you're going through as the energy increases and builds up. And so in the Taoist / Buddhistic terms of Kung Fu, your bubble, your furnace or your dantian is building and storing jing and qi so that you can solidify your shen. And these are the other triplicities of the tripart part of the Taoist immortal's soul. And when these things are built up and you have a very powerful, strong flow, internal flow, that's matching externally. And so the idea is that you are becoming immortal and you're immortalizing yourself amongst the stars in that metaphorical and mythological ascent that the apotheosis happens through the anagogic and towards the all thing. And so we need to become the philosopher's stone, just like you're becoming the Taoist immortal through practice. And that practice is that unification, that unifying field that's going on. And so the Taoists do it through that's what Tai Chi is all about. And that's why Yang Cheng Fen, Cheng San Fen, and what I was talking about with Ethan Indigo last week in our first part of our Tai Chi, the art and practice of this philosophy in action, is that's what you're doing. You are becoming the center triplicity between heaven and earth, thus being able to transcend and unify, and then you become immortal on all levels. Does it mean the body dies? I don't know what that means. And what is death? And so we got to ask ourselves these questions because it seems like we get stuck within a certain framework of understanding what it means to die. And so a lot of the times these Taoist monks, their body supposedly just goes invisible. They're just gone, as in they just apparate, just like another great representation of what it means to solidify the temple and the soul through right action is when Goku dies for the first time in Dragon Ball, or when Piccolo dies and they get taken into the realms of the Kami and the Kais, is that they just disappear because of their actions on Earth and the practices they did and the martial arts, the integration of all these things, and then protecting the kingdom, which is the Earth, right?
That was incredible exposition. Thank you so much, Brandon. Appreciate that. I don't really have anything to add to that. All I know is, cultivate yourself to the best of your abilities. There are good hermeneutics, there are bad hermeneutics. I think Daoism's a good hermeneutic. I don't know how practical it is in 2026, but there's a lot of ideas you can definitely take from it, mine from it. Martial arts, I think, is great. I think everybody should learn a little bit. I'm not just talking traditional martial arts, even self-defense, but that has to be met with some. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to take like a 6-week self-defense course taught by like some
that's
Oldike or whatever. You have to actually like practice something where you're putting the actual movements into practice.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
It's not just like taking a course and beating up a dummy. It has to be something more than that.
And it doesn't work.
That doesn't work. Exactly. That's the whole point.
It's a false sense of security. Yeah.
So if you want to really learn how to fight, take Krav Maga, take Muay Thai, take Silat, take Wing Chun. You can practically utilize all of those things. I don't even like jujitsu because I hate grappling. Like basically, unless you're like a big guy, if you are grappled to the ground, it's over. So you might as well be a striker. I'm just saying for my body type, and Brandon's like we're like similar size. I just think being a striker,
I love striking arts.
Working on your own movements, your speed, and those things, that's what's going to serve you. If you're a big guy and if you wrestled in high school or college or you played football, that is going to be you are going to like jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you're going to be great at that. Because it requires a lot of that like more force of gravity strength.
Well, that
right?
and the thing is, it goes back to the immortality of the Taoist thing. Is that like you can't it's so jiu-jitsu and grappling arts like that are so hard on your body. And so it's why it's really important. That's why like striking, like you can do all the Muay Thai shadow boxing and all the boxing and the Wing Chun, which also is an internal external art, or Tai Chi. Like the idea is that Tai Chi is an addition onto other things. So you're not going to learn how to fight doing Tai Chi, but if you know boxing or Sancho or Sanda, Muay Thai and these standing arts, and then you do Tai Chi, your boxing and all those other things are going to be so much better because of you're now bringing fluidity and the harmonizing of the body mind, because within Tai Chi it has its own concepts and actions that unlock in your body. And I think that's why that embodiment practice is magic. It's a ceremonial. It is ceremonial magic. I will write a book on this, on how Kung Fu itself is a form of ceremonial magic, because of I think Damien Eccles, if anyone could hook me up with Damien Eccles, I'd love to do an interview with him. But the idea is like that's what he's moved into, is just doing martial arts. His Zen practice and martial arts. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's so beautiful, because it goes back to the stillness of all things. That Tai Chi means grand ultimate, the grand cultivation of things. And and so I think that all of these things that we're just rambling on about right now is all about how to bring agency to yourself, and to stand up and become your own star, not a celebrity. And you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think. Oh, Frater's speaking to Damien later today.
Nice. If you want to, drop him a hook, Frater, for me, I would love to interview him. And bro, we're going to do our tool. Frater and I have been talking about it, and we will do it. And we will be talking and doing a whole tool live stream / video for everybody out there, just so they know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that is very cool. I think I absolutely agree with you, Brandon. I think this is the premise of like wuxia literature, manhua literature,
right?
The donghua, the Chinese animated series, is that cultivation, Taoist, Buddhist, martial arts, Chinese cultivation is absolutely the way that they believe in those stories. At least
they do. Yes,
that is how magic arises. They don't think it is in ceremonial magic per se.
Yeah.
They believe it, and this is since I was a kid. You can watch all these movies: Eagle Shooting Heroes, Dragon Tiger Gate, Warriors of Zoo Mountain 1981, Warriors of Zoo Mountain 2001, all the Soy Hark movies, Blade, the Chinese movie, not the one with Wesley Snipes, obviously, but Wesley Snipes was an incredible martial artist.
It was.
So but anyways, that's besides the point. A Bride with the White Hair.
Oh yeah.
A lot of these movies.
The Yin Yang Master was like so. I would say that's one of the best Japanese out there.
Onmyoto, right? Because Onmyoto is really Daoism that has been Japanified. So you have to say that, a lot of the ideas of cultivation are of knowledge, meaning that you are learning about the movements of the stars, the heavenly bodies, the asterisms, the planets, the nature and categories of spirits. This was very important for the Taoist monk, even if they weren't an exorcist in particular. They would learn about the categories and natures of the gods and spirits, the different kinds, the different epistems, and they would also learn about the various cultivation techniques, either positive or negative, as we've talked about. There's demonic cultivation. That's considered a negative cultivation. That doesn't mean evil.
No, not at all.
That means utilizing the dangerous energies to cultivate internally. That's very difficult. It's also difficult to cultivate using the positive or the yang energies. It is also difficult to do that. Some people are not intended to do that. So I think it depends. But I think, yes, absolutely. All of these things are hermeneutic to build capacity. They can produce results on their own. I don't know if we have all of the knowledge now, like in 2026, we fully reproduce the technical sort of feats of the immortals of old. Like if you ask my grandparents would absolutely say that people could fly in the past. Like no question.
For sure. That's fascinating.
I've had many conversations with them about these ideas. Obviously, I've talked a little bit about this. I know you brought up Montauk Chia, who's Malaysian or Chinese Malaysian.
Yeah.
Obviously, my family's Chinese Indonesian, so they have a similar idea called Kabatinan. It's not as like woo woo as Montauk Chia. Montauk Chia is actually taking elements of Kabatinan and sort of doing his own thing. But Kabatinan is a full system. They do believe that people possess magical powers. Like you can go look it up on YouTube. You will see like, oh, Kabatinan master pushes away a thief, and he'll have him. Yeah, it's fake, kind of, but like the master will do like an open palm, and the thief will go like I don't know, like 20 feet in the air. So yeah, it's kind of fake and it's kind of bullshit. That's kind of magic too, though. Magic.
That's the illusion. The illusion. That's exactly it. Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand when we're going about these things is that we're taking them as, and Jin keeps using the term hermeneutic. I think most people don't actually even know what that means. And I find it to be really important in understanding how to talk about theory, methodology, and the philosophy of interpreting and focusing on interpretations and focusing on the understanding of people and things and embodiment and communication and texts and this thing that can bridge the gap between the interpreter and the text and the author's intent and all these things, because we so many times we want to be like, this means that. And I think it's really important. Nice. Like for me, hermeneutics, I learned all my hermeneutics work in my philosophy program through Phenomenology and Paul Ricoeur and different characters like that talking about and how important hermeneutics is. And I think if we could understand that when we're witnessing something as it happens, that the author is intending upon it, this writing or this work, and then it takes its own it becomes its own egregore through time, depending upon the piece. And then through time, you are taking it and you're starting to read it and you're interpreting it. But why phenomenology is so important is that it gives us the ability to bracket off. It's called the epoche. We start to bracket off our everyday experience. We put it to the side. Thus, we're getting a closer look at the text itself. Because of what you would normally read, you would have all your loves and hates attached to it. And I think it's really important to not have those things. I think it's important to have those things, but at the same time, we got to know what's going on when we're interpreting something. So we're not also then going to interpret it through different lenses. That's part of the epoche. We bracket it off. But then we can see things for how they truly are and the kind of truth it's trying to disclose to us. And so when we're doing these types of things, I think it's the same thing when we're understanding this cult of celebrity, when we're reading about these Taoist monks in these texts, or we're understanding what illusion is both in magic of stage magic and the illusion of magic itself. Because if we come to understand it through the Buddhist frameworks of Maya, that Buddha himself under the Bodhi tree was confronted by Mara, and Mara being this deceiver / delusional / this individual is trying to frame reality in a certain way, adding on to the Buddha's experience instead of doing what he was trying to do and deconstructing these things so he could get down to the emptiness of all phenomena. And I think that's really important because then we can have a better understanding of what bad like martial arts is, McDojos and tomfoolery, right? This idea of people trying to show you that they have chi power when it's like, when you start actually doing these things and holding your body in a certain way and having the flicker of the eyes in a certain way, and you know that you can control a situation because if you got taken to the ground, you'd know what to do. If somebody tried to step to you, you know how to step back in that boxing step. What Bruce Lee say? Or Mike Tyson? It was Bruce Lee. What are the two things in a fight? I think Mike Tyson said it, or somebody said it. Eddie Bravo was talking about it. But it's the idea is that like if you knew any two martial arts, boxing or wrestling, those are the two you'd want to take into a street fight. Because if somebody comes up to you, you know how to throw them to the ground. But then the danger is there's concrete all around. And so you have to know how to control yourself in all situations. And it goes back to that main dictum. If you have a great ethics and a good moral structure, and you understand the movements and the ever-changingness of the situation, which is why the I Ching is so important in the frameworks of Daoism, let alone Tai Chi is in your 8 movements in the postures and what you're doing. 8 of them are the Bagua. The other 5 of them are of the Chinese medicine of the 5 elements, and they interweave themselves. And so when you're in the world, you can use this level of stillness, this level of confidence, and understanding that you being a hero on your journey has the ability to put your feelings aside so that the monkey mind can calm and the wisdom mind, the yi, can lead you towards truth in battle, no matter what it is. Why we speak to all people, why we're not about PC policing the world, why we must have the understanding that if I allow people to speak, they will be able to show themselves. And in showing themselves, we can put them in a certain position. Why we talk to all people. And when you hear them, listen to them for yourself. And don't listen to other people as they're going about it. I never want anybody to take my opinion or how I feel about somebody first. When I talk shit about Archaics, who I think is a net negative on this sphere, let alone this world, I truly believe that he is doing a net negative for the world. He's been doing a
net negative for a decade, for the whole time he's been active. Jason, like, go fuck yourself. Like, I really do not like him. I think he has, like, you want to talk about low IQ anti-Semitism? I'm not talking about like, oh, the poor Jews or oh, poor Israel. I'm talking about low IQ anti-Semitism where you are literally leading people off a fucking cliff, a bunch of fucking lemmings who cannot.
That's exactly it. It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous, and it makes me. It makes me so upset because of something like myself is trying to do. And I know, Jin, I can see it in all of your work, which is why we're coming together to make this fucking like alchemized version of our 2 thoughts in action, Magus in the Media, Threshold Saints, the Brandon Lee and Jin show, right? Sky Daddy's Above All. Is this is like,
you love that. That might be the title. Sky Daddy's, that is sick. So, fucking love it.
So the idea is, what I'm getting at is that there's a golden thread, and that's why I love Jocelyn Godwin's work so much, and everyone out there should pick up Jocelyn Godwin's work. Actually, just picked up this book. I can't talk to you about it because I haven't read it yet, but this book is gonna fucking hit so hard, and then I'm gonna do a video on it. But the primordial tradition of ancient China, the esoteric foundation of the I Ching and Chinese cosmology. The reason I love this so much is because I read his first one, The Golden Thread, which was introduced to me by the great Mark Stavish. And I think everybody out there, Mark Stavish runs the Institute for Hermetic Studies. You can go back on my my timeline. I did an interview with him, and I think it's, I love every interview I've done, but that one, he hit a certain understanding of how magic, media, the occult, and everything is going on. But this idea of a golden thread through all things that we're trying to find through these mystical traditions, magical societies, all the books in the world will only give you so much information unless you have experiences that move through the world and these practices, and they're hidden within the practices. And there is a golden thread through time and occulted history that we can, if we find these threads, we got to pull on them, because the mythology of our world and human understanding of consciousness through time, it's beautiful. And that's how we wage a war against the oligarchical parasitic class, this bloodline elite who think they are the divine kings of old. And maybe they have that bloodline that moves through it, because if you look at Dr. Heather Lynn's work, there is something to it. But what we're trying to get at is that is a dissuaded understanding of what the individuated individual is doing when they're trying to become the immortal Taoist walking through the world.
Agree. Well, what do you think Threshold Saints means, Brandon? It was originally from Zhonghu. I've said this a million times. The rivers and the lakes, the secret underground world that is reflected in the water in the I Ching cosmology, which is the Wu Sting, which is the 5 elemental system. No, it is not the 5 elements directly. It is the 5 transmutations of the natures of the elements that creates and destroys the world. It's alchemical in nature, but it's also conceptual. So metal can also refer to this idea of water, glass, like water like glass. That can also refer to metal. The mountain can also refer to metal. My name Jin, you can even see the character from My Name Jin right there on the screen. That also refers to metal. It is the actual act of the sword or a spear, or the lightning striking the ground, revealing the metallic core within. So it's this kind of, yes, hidden, adamantized, secret society, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, because when you read like the Eagle Shooting Heroes or the Deer Cauldron or any of those Jin Yong books, it's not really about the secret society. It's about the sort of connections that these individual lone wandering swordsmen make and alliances that they make with each other, and what their purposes and what do they believe their greater purposes. So I want to say that. So absolutely, I do believe that we're in a world in flux. I am much more of a sorcerer than I am a magian, but you know what? I'm not interested in the black hat versus white hat wars. I think we've probably done that for a couple thousand years. I think we should do something new. And that's why I even called it the Gray Lodge, because I feel like we can do something new. We don't have to do something where we're so bound up in creation or transgression. I think it can be a secret third thing. So that's what I'm into, synthesis. And I want to shout out Dusty Wild Sea. I saw you, Dusty. Thank you so much for coming. Obviously, we love that people come and want to support us. And I always say, like, especially on Monday nights when you come, you are supporting not only Brandon, Magus, and the media, you are supporting my presence on the show, because I'm not going to get asked on if we don't get enough. That's the reality. So thank you so much, Dusty. And yeah, I think that we're moving into this post left-hand path landscape. Post right-hand path, absolutely, that's dead. But post, even left-hand path landscape, we are moving into that right now. We are seeing that magic is much more of the mind. It is much more psionic. It's a psionic Aeon of the daughter. She's a scion. She has her scions, of which I call myself one. Her psychic soldiers that are in the klipas, in the trenches of the aether wave. The internet is the quicksilver surfers, and that's often how I feel. I often feel like I very much like a surfer. Like, I go out on my board, on the aether wave, on the timeline, see what the fuck is up, see what's going on, and then I make a little couple comments here, maybe do a couple quote tweets here. Then I retreat. Then I come back to the beach hut, which is the Gray Lodge, and we just have like these I don't want to call it a love fest, because people already think that it's some kind of weird tantra cult, which it really isn't.
No, it's not. No, it's
really
not.
not. It's really not. I promise it's not. It's very PG-13. At the worst, it's PG-13. But I just want to say that, like, yeah, I come back and then we chill out, and then that's sort of what it is. It's like that's how I treat Twitter. That is legitimately how I treat Twitter. I feel like that. I feel like Ethan Indigo on my surfboard, catching a couple waves, and then coming back and reassessing. So absolutely. And you know what? In an Aeon that is post left hand and post right hand path, that is not necessarily middle path as people normally understand it, which is centrism, which is not what it is. It is really going to be about individual discernment, I talk about this every episode, like Gevra. It's a Gevratic Aeon. It's an Aeon of fire and flowers. It's a 5-petaled flower, so it represents all 5 elements, but it's propelled through the force of Gevra into Hesed, so into the ocean of stable lightning. So it's so important that we manage to balance those forces of fire and water. But it's really all of the elements together. And so that is also legitimized and represented by the synthesis of both hands. And so that's why I'm like against this like super trad thing that some people are doing, because it always turns into hypocrisy.
Oh my God. They're all liars. It's because all those trad cons are liars. Everybody, when they go to this fucking Make America Great Again, or the America First, or whatever the big like fucking TPU, don't even get me started on TPUSA. They're all slutting out for each other at all times. It's fucking crazy.
Their ideas are fucking boring. The ideas of people on Twitter for their political ideas are boring.
Yeah.
They're boring.
Yeah. And
They
they're
are
so
not
hollow.
generative.
That's exactly it. No,
They
I
want to
completely agree.
destroy the world. Some
Yep.
people want to destroy the world and be anti-cosmic, and I actually understand the impulse. I really
Yeah.
sincerely do, because I spent a lot of my early 20s with that same feeling that the world was backwards. And I actually do agree that we probably have dwelt in the tunnels conceptually, civilizationally, metaphysically for a very long time. But it's also our own personal responsibility to break us outside of the tunnel, to break the klipas. And it is the aeon
Yeah.
of, it is, I call her the princess of breaking klipas. And so if we are breaking out, then let's break out. Then let's actually break out. Let's not reproduce the same structures that have not served us, that have been archontic inside the tunnels itself. Those are klipas within klipas, husks within husks.
Yeah.
Let us go to the edge of the cave, look upwards, and see the light in defiance, but not in defiance in an antinomian way. In
No.
defiance of saying that we can too can perceive God. And I'm not even talking about in a Protestant and like
No.
way where we're having an individuated relationship with God. I'm
No.
talking about
It's actually no sky daddies. What's is interesting? We're like anti sky daddies. Is actually the kind of idea is what we're getting at.
Yes, it's having the higher noetic experiences for yourself.
Yeah. Because really we're moving up towards the complementary supernull of the top three, right? Kether, Chokmah, Bina. This is when we merge contradictions through Doth and we get to walk through the abyss. And then there are no sky daddies or sky mommies anymore. There is only the all. It's true. Bana is the ultimate skywife, and so I do understand that, and I will state I love Promethea, and she sits up there as with she's both the Mother Mary and she's the mother and whore type of motif, and so it's true. I speak a little. I'm a
little more conceptually flexible than that.
You are. I know.
I believe that because the Dakinis in Buddhism they are wisdom, right? They're vidya.
Yeah.
Free in space. So they are actually more, this is really interesting. This is a difference truly of hermetic and a more tantric understanding that they would be more associated with Chokmah. But in the hermetic tree, yes, the mother and in the Hebrew tree as well is more associated with Bina. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting and it's fascinating, and the idea is what we're trying to get at is we're trying to break out of the tunnels of Set, right? And that is where where all these illusionary understandings of what it means to be a person and what to look up towards, because it all comes down to the understanding of what it means to feel hollowness or to feel fullness, and the hollowness is that cult of celebrity. And the fullness is what it means when you actually are balancing out your lower drives in the world. That a lot of the cult of celebrity, a lot of these individuals may have some status quo and the ever loved disc at all times, this coin. But what do you sacrifice to gain those things? Because it sure as hell wasn't their lower desires or drives. And that doesn't mean then through that you couldn't find the higher vision. But I find it does tend to get a little mucky and murky when you start kind of giving so much energy to the eye that watches all things.
Look, I am like, I'm not saying that people need to become like closed hermeneutics, like hermetically sealed. I'm sorry, hermetically sealed. And you don't have to watch anything.
Yeah.
But my suggestion is more like that. If you're asking me like what I do, it's not even a suggestion, just like me. Like I come on YouTube because people ask me. I don't come on YouTube because I watch YouTube. I'm not saying that I don't like watch you do interviews with other people. Of course I do.
Yeah, of course.
Or like Nick or Eros or anyone. Of course, I listen to my own show. Of course, I listen to guests who are coming on my show to hear them on other shows, so I can figure out like how to speak to them in a respectful, proper like way to think of questions. But it's not. I think that it's better to have a very focused sort of framework that you are engaging with this greater aether wave.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that I don't know. I think a lot of occultists, Brandon, are guilty of this same thing. I think they put other magicians also on pedestals. And I'm not saying that they're not important. And I'm not saying that like we shouldn't acknowledge the people who have forged and built the path both in their own lives and in magical ways, in metaphysical ways. Of course. But sometimes I think that we get too caught up in the cult of living celebrity.
Yeah.
And religions do this too. So again, talking about like the religious impulse is to project the quote unquote sacred framework onto secular things. And I just want to say like about the anti-cosmic comment, because I didn't quite finish it properly, is that it's important not to be either anti-cosmic, or you don't want to be like, oh, we're going to be like a Vishnu worshiper and like maintain these like crumbling institutions until they're like totally fallen down, and then be like, oh, where did our sky daddies go?
Right.
Well, they crumbled because you just sat there looking at it and saying, how beautiful. I'm not saying that we need to preserve it. There's nothing worth preserving. We have the ideas. Let's take them and let's do something else. That's just my idea. And it does sound a little anti-cosmic, but I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying just let them crumble. You don't have to do anything. They are literally going to fall. We are in the Silver Age right now.
Yeah.
The daughter has broken us out, if you want to say that conceptually. Let's see what happens. There's so much interesting shit that's going to happen in the next 10 years. We have to see the arrow fly across the world. The lightning and the rainbow together. We have to see that move through the world, love move through the world, and things will change. I sincerely believe that if we choose that way.
Yeah, no, the thing is that's what we learn. It's why we keep bringing up Eastern mysticism and Daoism, interesting enough, in this stream, is because of, and let alone it's both deeply impacted both of Jin and I's lives, but it's about change. The I Ching is the book of changes, because when we're talking about these elements or the eight bagua, those are only vessels for the ever-changing thing. And so if we can, again, I think it's a really important thing that I'm always trying to hit home on, because I can see it in my own life when I finally started moving through the world like the world was magic. Since that is the secret that this bloodline elite is trying to, these parasitic class is trying to hold back from us, is that all is magic, and it's in and of all things. Because it first consciousness in the beginning was the word, right? Bereshith, the logos, then all things were then from then on. And so I find that as long as we know that, then if we can go back to then how the I Ching is trying to have us understand the Tai Chi initiating itself from Wu Ji, right? This circle of nothingness and everythingness, we then can start to understand why things change so fast through time the older we get. And then, we can start merging our older understanding of Western ancient philosophy and our Eastern classics of their Eastern ancient philosophies, because these are the things that we're trying to get back to, but not because we need to go backwards through time. We need to bring on this underlying feeling of how we understand our place in the world. And if we can understand all as changing, the verb, right? And so in John Michael Greer's Eliphas Levi book, Dogmas and Rituals, I believe it's that one, whichever is the last one that he helped do, he changes that to, the logos, whatever is the word, the verb, because the verb is a better way of understanding reality than this noun-like thing that is ever stagnant and never changing, or then it morphs itself into the deist's understanding of the pocket watch and the clocks. And then we forget that these worldviews are being put on us by just really powerful or groups or these individuals or whatever it is. These worldviews get put out there and published and documented, and then reality morphs itself around them. And so if we can get back to the understanding that magic is for all and that things are ever changing and that there are practices and ways and worldviews to integrate into your everyday world, have an understanding of hermeneutics and how the phenomenology, the phenomenological perspective can help you bracket off your normal everyday living. And then through the practices, we can look at the world and we can start understanding that celebrities are reptiles. All right. Or whatever very David Icke kind of way you want to see the thing, right? They put on the glasses and then they look like zombies, or, like, but these individuals can wake up and de-smith themselves, and then it's going to take a lot of work.
Okay. Let me. I've got so many things, Brandon. I mean, come on. I mean, give me,
give me a bone here.
Let me have a little bit of airspace here. I'm just kidding. I love it when you go hard. Okay. I don't know about reptiles though, for real. But okay, so Freighter RC.
I don't believe in David Icke reptiles either. I'm just saying.
I know you don't. I'm not. I'm just kidding. I'm
Thank you.
Kidding.
Glamour. I like that. Thank you, William Birkin. Glamour. I completely agree. It's the that's the best mythology. That's the best way of talking.
Tripartite. They have the tripartite glow. The fake false effulgence. What do I always say? I've said this for 3 years since I started podcasting. When you're invoking spirits, you don't, if a spirit has too much effulgence, if it blinds you to what it truly is, that is a host. That is not a desirable spirit. It doesn't matter if it's a demon or an angel. Don't worship that. That's my idea anyway. Okay. Freighter RC, he made an interesting comment about the Hermetica. But then Brandon, actually, I don't know if he was directly referencing it. Could have been. Brandon's a very clever person. He talked about Bereshit. So yes, Genesis. Genesis contains the tree. Whoa, that's a mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing for people, I think, for like a lot of Christians to hear that, is that it's not, the Kabbalah is not contained in the Zohar. Kabbalah is not contained in the Sefer Yetzirah. Of course, it is in both of those things as well, but it really is in the Genesis. But it's not just in Genesis. It's actually in the Old Testament in every single book. It's in the New Testament in every single book, and it's in the book of Psalms. And it's in actually all the heterodox shit too. So yeah, the word is really fundamental. So how do we understand it? Well, there's all these different views. There's not just one kind of view. That's the one thing I've learned from working with DCS. Yeah. There's all these views of the tree. There's Lurius, there's post-Lurius, there's Isak the Blind, there's Ramak. I was really into Ramak before, but I'm just saying that is also another view. And just like with Buddhism is all the same. There's Longchenpa, there's Tsongkhapa, there's Rime, there's Sakya Treason, there's Padmasambhava, there's the fifth Dalai Lama. There's all these different thinkers. There's Nagarjuna, Naropa, all the Mahasiddhas. You have all these different views of the way the tree should be and should orient yourself.
Yeah.
No, and I will. I do like the Glitch Bottle podcast.
I
will definitely have to watch that DCS thing. I don't know if is the Glitch Bottle guy a better Kabbalist than Jin. No, I'll see. Anyways, I'm just kidding. I am kind of a snob, and I will probably say. But anyways, that's not. I'm sure he's good. I've watched the show many times. He's really good. I've watched his Greg Kaminsky, his Ike Baker. He's interviewed various other people. Hadrian Press. I think he interviewed the Hadrian Press guy.
He did Peter Mark Adams. I watched that one before.
Peter Mark Adams. Yeah, I watched that one too. So a great show. Okay.
We would love to. We would love to review that up. We would love to.
Yeah, we will. Okay, but Cassandra, my actual sky wife, she gets me. The Aleph. She said it, being one with the one. Yeah. So Freighter RC, you'll have to forgive me, but I am not monistic. I do not take a monistic framework. I am more into this thing where we have a paradox where we need to resolve. And the paradox, as DCS says, is resolved in Ein Sof Or. Now, you don't have to listen to me or you don't have to listen to DCS, but I actually think it makes a lot of sense. And I think if we take the tree non-dually as a Bina, Hokmah, create Dath in our own minds, meaning that Dath is not placed on the tree, but Dath is at the fifth part as density within each Sephira itself, I think this makes a lot more sense. That's just my opinion. That's just how I see it. So when Cassandra I think that to me is saying like the sun is able to move upwards as diamond fucking thunder, upwards through Kether into the hyperspace kingdom, traveling through space, which is also wisdom, free of time. So he's liberated from the causality of Bina, and he's able to go up. And that is the true Merkaba journey. That is what the sages were talking about. But it's also what the Buddhists are talking about. It's also what the Tantrics are talking about. Different people have can get higher. This is sort of my understanding now. The tree is accessible to most people. I think this is also what Brandon was saying, is like magic is for the masses. Most normgroids, and I'm not anti-normgroid, I'm pro-normgroid for the record, pro-plebeian. Most people will
What the fuck is a normgroid? Sorry.
A normgroid is just like someone who doesn't know about magic and like all the shit that people like us talk about.
Like a mundane. Okay, got it.
Yeah, like a mundane, but like it's more Twitter. It's more Twitter.
That's Twitter. I'm learning, as you know. I have to ask you questions all the time.
Okay, well that's fine. Then now you know that word. You can use it next time. But most people will need an outer density. Most people will not be able to handle Jin and Brandon Lee's non-dual fucking post-Lurianic cabal,
right,
hermeticism, Buddhism mixture.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the truth. But what people could do is they could actually cultivate their own minds. I know not everybody loves the loving kindness, the Hesed framework, or the Bodhicitta framework. A lot of magicians don't like it because they find it limits them. That may or may not be true, but I'm not making this argument for you. I'm making it for the quote-unquote normies. The reality is like people would be a lot better served by cultivating their own minds using the Bodhicitta framework. That would help them. You're talking about like normies. That would help them become much more psionic. They would be prepared to contribute positively to consensus reality if they cultivate Bodhicitta. That does not mean preserve the system or anything like that. It just means preserve the connection with their fellow man, as well as the world around them, the natural world, the actual Netzach, the actual garden, not the not the preconceptions we placed on the garden. So I think that would help a lot of people. And I think that would be, we need a magic system for the normies. And I want to say about the I Ching, which was what Brandon brought up for like 20 minutes. And I'm so glad he did, because it is, no, I don't mean it like that. I mean it like I had so many ideas when you were talking about it. And I was thinking to myself, like, this 64 series of trigrams is the key to the universe. Like in Tantra, we have this other thing called the Sri Chakra or the Sri Yantra, called both. It is 64 different triangles. This obviously, this idea of the 10, the 6, and the 4, Tiferet and Hesed, is extremely, extremely, extremely profound and important, and talks about bodhicitta cultivation. I mean, very directly. The Tiferet of Hesed, the beauty of loving kindness to move us through the aeon, to move us through the aether wave. Why is this a primordial and consistent idea? Because it's fucking real.
Yeah. It's how the brain is organized, actually. 64 codons and DNA. You know what I mean? It's such a fascinating understanding of how the frameworks of an organic material grows through time, which is change, over something that is still and never and unchanging. So the unchanging way over the changing ways. Or in ancient Greek philosophy, you get the ideas of Parmenides and monism, and you get that of Heraclitus and his all things are ever changing, right? The fire, his understanding of the tension of opposites between the war that is forever making and everything go. And so it's fascinating. You take these two ideas and then you move them through what Philip K. Dick says. You take both of these cosmogonies, and then from there you get exactly what we're trying to talk about today, is the breaking free of the hologram. So Philip K. Dick said that these two guys didn't have the understanding of a hologram, but if they did, that's where their two philosophies would coincide in understanding the makeup of the reality world that we live in, of Dasein and these things. So
okay, so to riff off that, use my kind of like framework, Brandon.
Yep.
So Frater RC brought up something really interesting about how the Hermetica believes in the individuation through the one. Well, so does Advaita Vedanta, which is Shaivite, quote unquote, Hinduism. So they believe that you can become your own individuated Shiva through the mind of the higher Shiva, who is also Atman. So this is obviously a argument that I'm very comfortable and familiar with, because Buddhism addresses it in like the 11th, 10th century and just kind of like destroys it. That's for us.
Yeah.
I try never to push my framework on other people. I understand that it's very niche, it's very Central Asian, it's very esoteric, even among esotericists. So I just think post-theism is the way to go. I think that I don't want to contribute to the egregore. That does not mean that I do not accept the existence of the three Gnostic aeons. I do. Seth, Miria, and Zoe. If people want to start a cult to them, that's fine. I actually think that would be more generative than people trying to reconstruct like Norwegian paganism and buying a Lutheran church. I know that's a hot post on Twitter right now. It's like some
the Protestant, like, oh my god, yeah.
They put like basically like they replaced Jesus, Palestinian or whatever, Jesus, whomever he was, they replaced him with like an Aryan blonde Jesus with a fucking 4-way cross right at the altar, and it looks just like a Lutheran church. And it's like, what are we doing here?
It's so funny.
It's a mid-century church. It doesn't even have any kind of special, like specifically a special potency or anything. I mean, temple architecture was so important to not just the ancients. I hate when people say that, oh, it's so important to the ancients. No, temple architecture was so important up until like 1750. And then we kind of like, I don't know if we forgot or we just stopped doing it, or we were like, maybe magic was less potent. Maybe because of the advent of electricity and sort of all these other things, maybe it became.
Here you go, bro.
What are we doing here?
This is it. What are we doing here? Isn't that great? Look at that.
I mean, it's a beautiful church. It's a mid-century church. As you know, Brandon, I do love my mid-century architecture, but I don't know. I'm not making fun of them. I'm not making fun of them for their faith or anything. I'm really not. I'm just saying you're taking the husk of the old, but they're putting in it the same bullshit. They're putting in the same essential bullshit.
Yep. Okay.
It's not moving away from the paradigm.
And I want to, I agree, and so I'm gonna give you my interpretation of a problem, and it definitely I'm gonna start it off by saying the great Bruce Lee quote of don't focus on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory, right? The heavenly splendor, the heavenly beauty. And I think that's what's going on. And I think that's a massive thing that I'm always trying to talk about to Korczynski and his understanding of the map is not the territory. And what happens because our nervous systems don't understand the difference between levels of abstraction? When we're trying to understand what is the concrete thing in comparison to what are these words that we're making up that then we fill. And upon filling those things, what happens is I think that's what all of a sudden it can get taken over the higher levels of abstraction. And so when you're talking about even Protestantism, but when you're moving into this Norse paganism and you start worshiping or creating, you called it creating like the from Shiva and the cults of Zoe and this different idea of it going back to the cult of celebrity is that this is the best way to describe it is that when we start worshiping a cult of the sun, like the physical sun, and then from there, that's okay, right? So very, I'm going to say primitive
okay,
minds.
I want to say this. Okay. In a tantric understanding, I've talked about this on the Grey Lodge before.
Yeah.
In a tantric understanding, the solar aeon is extremely important. As you know, Brandon, we use magic syllables, just like Kabbalah, kind of.
Yeah.
We call it a mantra. We call them bijas, individuated syllables, Sanskrit or Tibetan, sometimes Chinese, sometimes Siddham script. Anyways, so the two of the three bijas are solar in nature. But it is an aeon of reconciliation and paradox, which means that we do not eschew the lunar cycle as well. It's a synthesis. It's the alchemical marriage, as you know. So I just want to say, solar, if you're going to worship the exterior density of any idea in the next aeon, the sun is a great place to start.
It is. No, right. And that's not me shitting on it, but it's me showing an example. But I agree. If you are like, stop worshiping idols and worship physical natural materials like the sun or the moon or the stars, I'm 100% for that. But it comes back to the idea of why you were like, Frater, I'm not a monist. And this is where it gets at. And when we're talking about what is the initial pulse of reality, of consciousness that moves through things from the Ein Sof or through Ketharon, the lightning bolt down, is that we start to forget what these levels of abstraction are. And fascinating enough, we all think that this is why I'm very Platonic in my thinking, is that yes, we are in the kingdom and you have this earth worship, Gaia worship, or you have this pagan revival going on. And people are starting to do rituals to Odin and Thor and God knows who, which is so much different than when you're sitting in front of the Gohonzon, Lotus Sutra scrolls, Buddha statues, because technically you're not worshiping an idol. And that goes back to
worshiping the words of man. That is fundamentally about the potentiality. Buddha is a man. Whatever Buddha you're worshiping, it doesn't matter if you're worshiping a cosmic Buddha, a tantric Buddha, a Dakini Buddha, a ferocious deity Buddha. It doesn't matter. You are the Buddhism is about the aeon of man. We are in the aeon of man. I'm not saying to become a Buddhist. This is not a pitch to become a Buddhist. It really isn't, but I do sincerely, I believe in Dharma. Like, I'm very sincere about my love of Dharma, but I don't also take it strictly as entry level 1 Normgroid Buddhism.
No,
I understand it more fundamentally, but I love that you said that about the Gohonzon, because in the syllable itself, that is the potentiality. That is the diamond thunder. That is the lightning strike.
Yes. And that's my point, is that we need to get back to that initial understanding of why we're doing these things, is because we're trying to ignite that internal spark. So then the rest of reality can bloom forth into enlightenment. Into, not enlightenment in a new agey way, but to the awakening of yourself, and then thus the planet itself kind of awakens into this new awareness of being. And so it goes back to why it's like, don't worship Chesed, don't worship Gabura as you're on your way up Chokma, Bina, all the Kether even. Let's not get entrapped into the all expansiveness, because there's something else there. But the idea is that we are in the ever cycle, right? So yes, you could step off that wheel, off of samsara, but I don't even know what that means. And so it comes back to, what are we doing right now, and why to not get lost in the muck on the path.
Correct. Right? I think that was very well said, Brandon. What are we doing right now? How do we get off the motherfucking wheel of samsara? So you answered it, but I'm going to address it specifically. Lisa brought it up. The photo that you showed looked like a solar deity, and appeared the rune representing the sun went all the way around his head. Yes, the Sonnenrad, the lightning bolt, the black sun, some people call it. Yes, that's probably true. I don't know what deity it is. What I'm talking about, and what I also think Brandon is talking about, is it is actually better, from a Kabbalistic opinion, to remove the husk, meaning that you do not worship an outer deity. You actually would just worship the actual physical sun. That is preferable.
Knowing that the physical sun is but a representation of the actual thing that you're tapping into.
Correct.
Yeah.
I've said this Brandon, I've said this always. I always said the planets are klipas. I do not agree that the planets are the Sephira. I know a lot of people think that, but I've never said that, and I agree even not Tiferet, and Tiferet is special because Tiferet is a star.
Yeah.
Stars above planets. But
Yeah.
I agree. So Lisa, that is completely correct. But I do think that people would be served because even if, okay, so just studying speculative Kabbalah, you understand that God, yes, God, capital G God, is post phenomena logical.
Mm-hmm.
It does not, he does not exist in the lightning strike, in the sun shining down on you, in the trees, in the wind. It is in your perception, your Hesed, with those things. You have to be there. You have to be the witness to creation, to the lightning strike. So for the normie, for the normgroid, it is better that they worship those outer phenomenological presentations of those things, even if they don't understand the inner core.
Right.
Because they're normgroids, right?
Yep.
But it is still better that they worship those outer phenomenological things, not as gods, but maybe as manifestations of like this numinous whole.
Mm.
Or just like reflections of the greater multiverse or the Shakti or whatever it is. I'm not saying like they call it like, oh, it's the goddess. She's angry in heaven, so she's like sending down lightning bolts. No, then you might as well just worship Zeus too. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that maybe you just understand it in a post-theistic way and you kind of like you allow people a variation in their views because people already are varied in their views. So I'm not shitting on those pagans. I'm really not. It just was like a hot tweet on Twitter.
You know what's funny, bro, is how many people ask me. I get asked that all the time. Why does Jin hate pagans so much? And I was like, actually, he doesn't. He doesn't. Yeah.
I really don't. I do not hate pagans. Look, I have always been very post-theistic. My orientation to the Tantra I've always understood Tantra at a much deeper, like much more fundamental way to not, because we have deities and I believe in dakinis, absolutely. And I believe in the deities as well. And I believe in the Gandharvas and the Nagas and the Yakshas and all the forces, the Gyalpos, all the forces of creation. Yeah, they all exist here. But what is part of the Marga? Are they just beings that exist upon the carnal ground, upon the greater mandala with us? Yes. Buddhism would say yes. So what do we follow? Well, I follow the Buddha. The Buddha can manifest in different ways. The Buddha can be a dakini. The Buddha can be a wrathful deity. So I follow that.
And well, I think and I think it's important to go back. You did say something that was kind of interesting, saying that Buddha is a man, and I completely agree. Buddha was Siddhartha, but I think he was also tapping into that great Buddha consciousness, which is above, the highest realm. It's that first realm, in the 10 realms of things. And so Buddhahood is something that is above even tapping into what it means to be a god, right? So it's like there's gods, and then Buddha is above all things. It's the
The Buddha realm is definitely above the devil.
So I just wanted to temper what you said about Buddhism being about a man. It is.
It's also about a man, but it's about his potential to be.
Yes, exactly.
Buddha. Okay, let's just break down his name.
Yeah.
His name refers to Bud or Hod, Mercury, the speaker, he who is the witness to the revelation and apocalypse of the world. That's what it's referring to. That's why the original Buddhist Thai forest tradition monks wore the robes that looked like the colors of the old way that they depicted Hod, which was orange as a jackfruit and emerald green, which is why that there's the famous emerald green Buddha in Thailand, because it's the same idea as what the Ramak said. It's the light passing through the clear emerald. Emerald is not clear, but actually sunlight through the right refraction will pass through the emerald Buddha and it will be clear, it will not be green, because that is the power of your vok, your speech. So you say the words, recite the mantra. Okay, you clarify your karmas. That's the whole idea. So yes, it's about the man becoming Diamond Thunder. Now, I'm a Tantric Buddhist, so we don't focus on Gautama almost at all. We recognize him as being a historical Buddha, as laying the foundations. That's great. That's nice. Of course, yes, lovely. But we also go beyond that, just like Brandon is also saying, that
Yeah.
we do not worship the devas as the finality, as the
Yes.
eternity, as the Netzach. We do not worship them as that. You might have a relationship with a deity. This is very traditional. You might have a particular
Which is
deity.
totally fine because it's like something you got to
Totally
balance out in
fine.
yourself. Totally
Correct.
great. Yeah.
Correct. Nothing wrong with that. And for the record, like, do not ask Brandon if I hate pagans. I do not hate pagans. I do not like polytheism because I'm not a longhouse person. I
That's it.
refuse to be cowed down to the matriarchy. I am not a patriarchy person. I refuse to be cowed down by the bathhouse. Neither the bathhouse nor the longhouse can contain me. I have said this for literally 3 years on many times. So this is nothing new. I I personally think the multiverse is wild and weird. I
Yeah.
think there's many beings in it, but essentially I think that it's about my own perception and my own mind. I don't think that's the only thing. I'm not a Diana person. I'm not mind only. I will say that
Of course
too.
not.
And
We have embodied practices. That's why you do
Correct.
martial arts as well. That's why we accentuate the warrior form, and you need to become a king or a queen, no matter who you are. You need to step up and build the temple, the third temple. Right? What's that
Correct.
mean? What does that mean? People are so ridiculous. It's like build the third temple, thrice great Hermes Trismegistus, the tripartite soul, the many different, like build this is the third temple. This is it right here, right here. You don't need to go somewhere to do so. Wherever you are is where the center of the universe stands. And so if we can remember that, that'll make things a lot easier. And then we're not mistaking the map for the territory or the menu for the meal, but we can get things back down to the concrete understanding of our existence. And that is you right here. You are thrownness. You've always been here. This is the great story that will forever be told no matter what manifestation or incarnation you take. You have to tap back into that infinite spark of existence that's trying to regather itself as the first time it may have faltered. I like the Lurianic Kabbalah understanding of the clip-off being these divine husks and shards, and then what is the
It makes a lot of sense.
So much sense.
A lot of sense. And you actually cannot understand Kabbalah. I thank you, Frater RC. That's not true.
Frater,
I appreciate
it.
But you cannot understand the tree, in my opinion, without the paths, the secret paths that Lurius discussed, which is the path from Bina to Hesed and from Hokmah to Geburah. In my experiences with the tree, I experienced those paths. They did not exist to my knowledge. Like I didn't have knowledge of those paths, but they seemed like they were there when I was doing my speculative work.
Yeah.
So it makes logical sense to me that actually what Lurius was saying in a lot of ways was correct. It's just how you interpret it. Do you interpret what Luria is saying as doing, let's do black magic, let's do transgressive, ecstatic Kabbalah, like in the desert, and like have sex parties with animal sacrifice? No, that's not the point. The point is the conceptual framework he is using to get there actually adds to the completeness and the fullness of our understanding of the tree. So I agree. Oh, so Lisa asked me a great question.
Yeah, she did.
Consider yourself, Jen. Look, I'm just a tantric. I'm a sorcerer on the carnal ground. I believe that Buddhism is ontology. I don't really subscribe to any particular cosmology.
Ontology means the study of being. I just want everybody to know that ontology is it's the study of being, and telos is the idea of that we have purpose.
So Buddhism is, although yes, Brandon was right to correct me 100%. It is not simply about being a quote unquote normie man. But in a way, Buddhism does teach that our human rebirth, in Malkuth, however you understand that. I think we are our Malkuth, but that's me. People can have their own interpretation. I believe that it is Buddhism also agrees. Our human rebirth is short, it's precious, and it's important. This is the only time we are truly free agents to choose our karma. What do I mean by choose our karma? Everything we do, everything we think, every person we love, every word that we say has karmic implication. I believe that we should learn or seek to be in right relations with both the natural geological relatives like the waters, the oceans, the rivers, the trees, all of that. I'm not a hippy dippy kind of bullshit person either. I'm really not. But I believe that we should seek to be in good karmic relationships with those things, and also in right karmic relationships, or at least neutral karmic relationships with other people. Now, human relationships are messy. You're going to be karmically implicated the minute that you get feelings involved. That's the nature of karma, emotions. Buddhism is very misunderstood in the West as being some shamanic path where you must give up everything that you love, care about, want, desire, everything. No, you just learn how to, especially for Tantra, so I'll speak for Tantra. It is how to transmute those things. That doesn't mean that you even change what you initially wanted in the beginning. What it means is that you come to greater understandings of how to embody that, to borrow what Brandon said, in your own being, design. That's the exact thing. You learn how to utilize those things so they are useful on the path and as hermeneutics. It's not about, oh, I desire this person or this relationship, and so you must be like, oh, no, goodbye. Monastery life. No, that's not it, and that's not Aeon of the Daughter either. I said very clearly at the beginning of that working, it is the Aeon of the householder. Brad and I have discussed this both privately and publicly, and so this is no surprise to him. And I think a lot of people agree, because a lot of people, millennials more than anyone have led very unconventional kind of lives. We've had unconventional relationships. A lot of us have, I'm talking about strictly myself, but anyone else who's a millennial will probably very much agree with me or feel some kind of kinship to what I'm saying. We've led complicated, fucked up lives. And so we have karmas to rectify. So that's a great time to be doing that. And that's why I even started podcasting for myself, was so I could figure out more of these ways to engage with karmic ideas and how to rectify myself. I'm not great with people. Oh, big surprise, everybody. Like, oh yeah, Jin is like amazing. No, Jin is difficult, complicated, often hilarious, but yeah, I'm complicated and difficult for sure. It's just the truth. I'm a baddie, whatever. It is what it is. But I'm trying to rectify myself. That does not mean I'm going to be like a perfect saint, whatever. Like we're all figuring it out, is what I'm trying to say. And so I think that that's what ultimately the goal is. Like, I can't identify as a pantheist or a panentheist. Like, I like Baruch Spinoza.
I was just gonna bring him up. You just broke my parade.
Well, I apologize, Brandon. You can still bring him up.
Thanks.
I'm just saying that I don't really
I do too. Spinoza's great.
I agree. Spinoza is great. And like, I agree with a lot of his ideas. Now, you could say that Tantra is very animistic. Yes. There's a big part of Tantra that is functionally, quote unquote, shamanic, where you are trying to balance the forces of the natural world, the forces of yourself, and then perhaps also the forces of a community or a greater grouping of people, or just a single person, a patient. Tibetan medicine and Tantrayana, Vajrayana, Tibetan Buddhism, they go hand in hand. To be a Tibetan doctor, you must be a very skilled tantrika. It's not just about using magic to achieve results, although perhaps you would also utilize sadhanas to achieve results. But it's not just about that, but it's about understanding afflicting spirits that cause disease, then figuring out, oh, okay, so what practices can then that person and I, as the doctor, as the healer, can then undertake so you can transmute and change them.
Nice. So, yeah, I like that.
Practice magic, practice Daoism. I think Daoism is really fucking cool. Yeah. I think animism's cool. So again, not anti-polytheist. I just don't worship gods. I'm not a
That's
deva
it.
or an
That's it right there.
asura.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Nice. I think that the not worshiping of gods is, and I think that's something that we get trapped into when we don't understand base terms, like what theism is or what deism is, right? And why then adding pan, which means all, to the beginning of these things. So, right, pantheist, it means that the universe is God. The use and God are synonymous, right? But then you go into the panentheist, which then means that actually the universe is inside God, the mind of God, or whatever that kind of ideal realm means. And when, upon my discovery of going through the history of philosophy in my college courses to become a philosopher, you go through all of these things and why certain people are reactionary to their predecessors, like Locke and Hume. At the same time frame, you're getting Baruch Spinoza around that in the 1600s. And so you're getting this differentiation between, now we've become lost in the muck in the history of philosophy with people like Locke and trying to understand what are the different levels of sense perception. And then all of a sudden philosophy is deep in this enlightenment period and it's so fucking boring. And it makes me want to ram my head through a wall. And then you get
because
people.
Buddhism already explains all this. There are 5 sense aggregates. It's so simple. They're each assigned a color and an element. You just learn how to work with those 5 things. It's very much like Barden. I'm not saying it's exactly the same. It's not exactly the same at all, but it's very similar. And so, and like, I'm sure there's Golden Dawn things. There's certainly Temple of Set things. There's all this magic shit that's telling you how to do it. Now, do they have the right view? In my opinion, no, but I practice Dharma. So what the fuck do I know? All I know is that we have already explained it. That's old. To use a Twitter term, it's old troon shit. We need to move forward in the aeon. I know I'm not a Zoomer. I speak just like one. It's so embarrassing. But yeah, we need to move forward in the aeon. That does not mean we reject history, but it means we're informed by it.
We must read all.
We are not bound. We are not bound by the Binah Daddy. We just aren't. It's just we are a bit freer because we're more Hasidic. There you go.
Yeah, I like that. And then to continue on to it, to why Heidegger was so important in all this is for many reasons, but the loaded terms that we tend to get when we are worshiping like this framework of what theism is, and what's so important is it's because we start to see ourselves as so important. And it's like, well, how do you get there from seeing yourself so important to worshiping this thing that supposedly is the creator of all things? It's trying to go back and to understand that we got lost in the muck of worshiping beings. And that's why Heidegger's all like, we need to get away from talking about being, small b, being in the world, where all of a sudden we're talking about a cup and we're talking about the computer and we're talking about rocks and trees and people and chairs and everything. And it's like that, it must be understood. But I want to talk about what, when you ask what is being, well, what is, and what is the isness of all things? And that gets us back to the study of being itself, big B, being. And that's why we go all the way back in time to the like Aristotle and Plato and beforehand, where they truly were trying to break down the cosmogony. What is this beingness that surrounds us, that seems to be putting us through this thing? And then we are trying to level ourselves in the world where we all can be manifestations of beingness. And that breaks down the subject-object dichotomy into us finally solidifying them within the intentionality of consciousness, and that moves us forward into the aeon of daughter stuff, right? Where all of a sudden we're not talking about Sky Daddy Osiris. We're definitely not talking about Sky Mommy Bana, right? Or like the new wheat. I don't want to talk about new wheat anymore, which is why I even think the Thelemic religion could be an old world religion. Obviously it is, because it's the amalgamation of Osiris and fucking Isis, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah.
No, you're totally right about that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I've never heard anyone articulate that exactly like that. I honestly agree with you 100%. So if someone asks you if I hate pagans, you can just repeat what you said, that it's not about me hating deities even. I believe in the Aeon of Mot and the Aeon of Horus. If you want to hear Jin be super like OTO pagan, I believe in those two aeons. And so I also believe in the third aeon, which is like a kind of mithraic figure, pre-generative, invisible, like a child. So I divided all those three out. Aeon of Mot is the Aeon of Nuria. Aeon of Horus is the Aeon of Seth. And the secret third thing, the Aeon of Mithras, is the Aeon of Zoe. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's it right there. So I think that we are moving into a new generation. So we should follow Mott, we should follow Horus, and we should follow quote unquote Mithras. I think those are the foundations for the quote unquote new Aonic religion, if you want to call it that. That's my opinion.
No, I love that. And I think that's a great opinion. And the reason I love that as well is to add on to why it's so important to not reject and like why we should, like, why for me it's like we shouldn't reject anything, but the idea about modernity is that it's such a fucking like a hustle bustle pot of this hollow shell of these chthonic these like chthonic energies that have now pinned themselves up in the institution. It's because it's the dregs of the age of Osiris finally dissipating itself with these institutions, and it's a hollow shell of this theatric fool of the great Donald, right? This guy up there who is just a pushing force of the old Aonic Aeon of Yahweh, right? That, I mean, we are now watching that die itself. The age of Osiris being over, and people are like, well, that happened back in the day when Aleister Crowley brought on the new Aeon with the Book of the Law. And I'm all like, okay, whatever. He had his own daddy issues. Great magician. I don't care what anybody says, but the importance of knowledge, of understanding that we must pass still through, and why I think like myself, who have not a Mason or not been in an institution of the Hermetic or the Golden Dawn, Jin and I truly waving our wands as Ronins through the world, great sorcerers ourselves. And the idea is that we must see where we came from, so we can transform, transmute, take what is useful, discard what is useless, and make it essentially our own, thus still passing along the lost word, that lost key of Freemasonry. What is the lost word of the Temple of Solomon? What is this thing that they're always talking about? That great thread that has many names, many faces, but still remains the same through time. That is what we're talking about. And that's why it's like not about worshiping anything external and outside of yourselves, because what you are directly looking for is in the center of your own heart, which is why that book of changes, the I Ching, is talking about that space and that place where no charlatan, no judge or grim reaper, no tyrannical, all-seeing panoptic eye of Jeremy Bentham can peer into as Peter Thiel tries to steal your very soul. The idea is that you must understand the deep reflections of these symbols and signs and motifs and mythologies and metaphors, that they are trying to point to something. And that something is that direct thing as we move forward into one of the metaphors is that we're talking about, as Jin speaks about the Aeon of the daughter, and that we move through it with majesty, because we want to understand why our traditions
facing
were the way
upwards.
they are.
We look upwards. We don't look down. We no longer look down. Sorry, Kenny G. Shout out Solar. We do not need to look down upon the tunnels. We need to look outside the cave. That is the point of Aeon of the Daughter. We don't need to be stuck in the old ways. We can configure ourselves based on the ways we want. If that means informed by history, sure, great. I agree. Inform us by history. Let's inform ourselves by the history that's going to actually be real, like relative for our lives now. And so I also think this goes back to the question of like, do I hate pagans? Which is of course no, but also like, what do I identify as? Pantheist, panentheist, etc. I'm an axialist. So I personally believe, and Brandon even brought this up, so I'm just parroting or echoing him.
Yeah.
We've done this all before. We have literally worshipped Osiris and Isis, not just in Egypt and not just by Crowley. But yes, both of those things are true. We have revived those aeons because they are part of the axial cycle. We are not in an aeon of the mother or aeon of the father. You don't worship the aeons of the quadrant that you're not in. It doesn't even make sense. The humanity never did this. Like the people who understood, like Brandon's talking about, like the magisters of the Temple of Solomon, they understood. There were multiple statues in that temple. They understood. They didn't necessarily see it like how we saw it. They saw it as a more expressions of Hesed or God, Diamond Thunder, like God, Yahweh, or Hashem. They saw the different aeons as expressions of him. That's fine. If people need to believe that, that's totally fine. I'm fine with that. I'm not going to try and change people's minds. And that's the same thing with pagans. We have already done that. We talked about this last week quite extensively. Brandon and I don't know if Brandon believes this, but I think he actually agrees with me, but I'll let him respond. The primordial religion is kind of like a Zoroastrianism. It's kind of like an everything goes, you're worshiping everything under heaven, everything under hell, the 33 gods in heaven, the 99 gods in hell. Where am I getting this from? Tengriism. Tengriism, the oldest, like kind of living shamanism, living kind of Vedic, proto-Vedic religion. That's their exact cosmology. 33 in heaven, 99 underground. So black hat and white hat shamans, that's the perennial system. So I just think we move outside of that and we move into the pink and the gray, which is sort of unknown, and it's a scary. And I understand what I'm saying, and a lot of what Brandon is saying is scary. It's Luciferian. It absolutely is.
Absolutely.
We both agree that it is. We know that it is.
Yeah. Shout out Peter Gray.
Shout out Peter Gray.
Yeah.
But it is the time to be Luciferian. It is a time to embrace the Promethean flame, the Luciferic light of man, and not allow the oligarchs or the archons or the magians or the old trin priests of the old temple to win.
Yeah.
You need to be an agent of your own star game, and that starts in your own mind.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That's beautiful. Nice Jin. Nice fucking Jin drops beats, drops lines. It's beautiful. I think it's fascinating that this is all kind of gearing towards how to understand our place in the world. And I think that's something that is really that people don't actually like to talk about. And it makes sense because of this, the stars and the celestial sky has been hidden from us. And you must do kind of like, some of us have done and moved ourselves either because of we're lucky enough or because the universe has placed us there somewhere where we can still see the night sky. Because that night sky is that direct link to the grandeur. It's just pure grandeur and that beatific vision of as we are reaching our gnosis, that we can peer through the narration and the devils, the demons, the muck that are presented to us on a daily basis. And I think it's a lot easier to understand all these things, and it's easier for us to grasp when you see them as your own personal projections. That everything we see negative about a person, you have actually most likely done to somebody else. And every lie you've spread, or when I was young and in my breaking free from the new age of new ageism and spiritualism, that you start pushing a message that maybe you don't fully agree with because you haven't thought it through, nor have you had enough life to truly understand what the message is or egregores you're moving along. And so you push one message or another, and then all of a sudden you're so old and you are listening to a podcast from somebody who puts himself on Gaia TV, and you're all like, I think that maybe corporatism moving through something so somebody can sell something. And so maybe that cult of celebrity isn't so far away like in Hollywood, but is actually represented on Instagram every day you open up and you're trying to listen to your next greatest occult podcaster or witch talk woman who's chanting for some kind of liberation, or a man who's saying he's a king but like doesn't have a home. And so it's really fascinating how we project these ideas outside of ourselves, and I do it too every day. It's a constant, I'm constantly red pilling myself, and I mean that in the actual matrix way of taking the red pill to be able to break yourself free from the matrix. Because again, everyone should know that he took that one pill, but it was only because he was trying to disrupt the signal from the agents, right? Have we all forgotten why the red pill was taken? Take the red pill And, we can move you along this process and take the blue pill and you'll wake up in your bed like Alice, like none of this ever really happened. But to take the red pill meant then he got strapped into a chair. So they could actually put his consciousness back into the egg. So he is feigns breaking himself away from the egg, like the great Mithraic ritual, and being born again into the world so he can move along his path and slay the bull. And this is everything that all of us are doing.
I totally agree with that, Brandon. I think there is a really interesting kind of like a Buddhist Gnostic, Hindu Gnostic, syncretic Gnostic framework in the Matrix. Obviously, you and I did a roundtable with Chris Knowles of Secret Sun blog, who was actually awesome. Both of you and I both thought so. And I don't know if we were like, I was excited, of course, and I know you were excited.
Yep.
But I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and I actually think it went really well. And
it was a great conversation.
He did bring up something I had been long thinking about, but kind of scared to say about the Matrix.
Yeah, he did.
Which was, he didn't say this, but it was something that I've been thinking about, but it kind of goes along with his idea, is that it is kind of fucked up if you think about it in a really tantric framework, that he would have been able to end the Matrix from inside the egg using his own mind.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there was a kind of antibody Gnosticism, and then a hedonistic Gnosticism later on in the trilogy.
Definitely.
It was kind of like very bipolar. It wasn't very they didn't reconcile the polarities. They kind of pulled it both ways, and it became very like essentialist.
Whoa. What about the end? In the end, Neo broke himself. He used his body, reconnected himself to the Matrix, and basically sent a pulsation of light through all the fucking tentacles of the AI cyborg machines.
Yes, but it was all destined to happen. That was the whole kind of thing with the Animatrix. That's what the whole thing was, is like the Matrix was the sort of princes and principalities, quote unquote.
Yeah.
The externalities of the thing that arose, the abyssal gods, to bring up that at the very beginning.
Yeah.
The abyssal gods that arose out of the ideas of man, that swallowed up mankind, swallowed the sun, swallowed man's consciousness very literally by plugging him into the eggs.
It did exactly what the yes. It's true. It's true.
And it was also samsaric. That's how the series implied it. If you watch the Animatrix canon,
which is great.
I agree. The Animatrix was actually better than the second two films, in my opinion.
It was 100%. I agree.
But anyways, the Animatrix posits that it's a samsaric cycle. Like I always say this too. We talked a lot about Fifth Element last time, Sailor Moon. But there's another series that I've often cited that I think everybody should fucking watch: Battlestar Galactica reimagined, not the old series, reimagined.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Well, you need to watch that, Brandon, because it has all the themes that you're going to love.
Okay.
Including the worship of pagan gods. But anyways, they say in the thing, it was as was written, as it was foretold, so shall it be.
Yeah.
Meaning that the scriptures in the Battlestar Galactica were discussing a return. I've
seen the new. Yeah, I've seen that Battlestar Galactica. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Okay, so that's what it's saying.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. Scriptures were actually describing the journey that they were undertaking, meaning that this had all happened before, as the scriptures say, and it will all happen again.
Yes, and that is the great cycle that we're talking about. That's the great cycle.
We can choose. We can actually get off the wheel of samsara. We can embrace the axial nature of the world. If we face the aeon, the new aeons, like the aeons of this quote unquote cosmic time, we have liberated ourselves from samsara in a way.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. Wow, Jin. Wow, Jin. I think we've come to a nice little precipice in our conversation.
I'm sorry. It was like a very we went wild. I was wild.
That was
I'm gonna
great.
listen back to this and be like, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna have to go off the internet after this.
No,
Anyway,
this is beautiful. I think every stream, every show, every episode you and I get into, we dig a little bit deeper, we connect a little bit more, and we understand and just help bring the conversation to the people and why we're all doing this together and why everyone should take three, seems like every episode is hitting 3 hours of their day to listen to this, because either you're hearing the mad ramblings of two aging men or the wisdom of aeons. You know what I mean? And I think it's probably a little both. So it's fascinating that we can, bring all of us together. And if you have any friends or family that you want to sit down and really have a wonderful evening and start questioning your very existence with, just know that you can do it with us with a smile. And I think that is the beauty of all these things, that if we can bring that to the great suffering, right? It is the great cosmic drama of suffering. We can bring the cosmic laughter. And I think that's something that old Uncle Bob used to bring to us, right? The old Robert Anton Wilson is bringing why the age of discord or Discordianism and why Eris was so beautiful in all of these things, is she was able to help bring that Buddha laugh to a little bit of every situation. And I think that's something that we can do with a little bit of humor, a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of stupidity. And I think that's really, really important in this day and age where I think everyone takes themselves a little too seriously, like the cult of celebrity that we're all witnessing fall at this very moment. There are egregores that we have built up, and I think it's time for us to detach from them. But we don't want to do it in a way that we're rejecting everything that goes along with it, and we've become cynics in the end. The levels of idealism that we're reaching aren't that of idealism of just pure hope where we don't have a place and agency in the world, but it comes from a place where we're going to truly bring the Socratic method back, ask the real questions, and try to get some answers that can truly make a difference. Jin, please tag and tell us where everybody can find you and what you're working on.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Brandon Lee. Frater. Brandon Lee. I don't know. Fuck it.
Love it.
Brandon Lee, my friend, my brother, thank you so much. I'm going to actually announce a start of a new sort of after hours gin series, but it won't just be me. And in fact, I won't even be hosting it, much like with the show. It will be hosted by Mr. Solar Exile, who is my co-host on the Grey Lodge and on Threshold Saints. We are going to be doing an Aeon of the Daughter Redux remix. He always has teased me for the last 3 years that I am stuck at Hokmah. He doesn't say that, but the implication is that I'm very much free in space, a little too acid jazz for his liking. And he wants to bring it into the Binah Daddy era, arc, whatever you want to call it. And so we're going to do short, like 20 to 60-minute sort of clinically cold interviews where he's going to ask me very precise questions. He is the king of precision about the Aeon of the Daughter and the Kabbalah involved and its relationship to Tantra and Gnosticism and Buddhism. So if you are don't know what I'm talking about when you hear Aeon of the Daughter, you don't want to go back and listen to all of our Grey Lodge spaces, which of course are on our YouTube or on our Grey Lodge website, thetruegraylodge.com. With a TRVE, greylodge.com. You can listen to all of our Grey Lodge episodes there. They're also on YouTube at the Grey Lodge. They're also, that website also links all those Threshold Saints episodes that I've done with other brothers in the lodge. Brandon and I do have a show that will be airing on my feed because obviously I want to include all the people that are important to me on my feed, not because my feed is monetized. It's not. That's sort of the whole point, is that I actually want to choose who comes on and, like, you know, when the show ends or if it ever ends or who knows what will happen. But it will be this crazy occult zine, this kind of Aeon of the Daughter working that every single person that has been on the show will be had a part of. And so everybody will kind of be part of that metamagical history. And I don't just mean in like a way that everyone's like a outer orbit of Jinn. I mean everybody will be a free agent in and of themselves to come and contribute to the metamagical madness that is Threshold Saints. So you can also listen to Threshold Saints at thresholdsaints.substack.com, Threshold Saints on IG, at Threshold Saints on X Twitter, at Wukong Reborn on X Twitter, and of course, I think that's all my links. Yeah, I have the episode with Paul Fredericks dropping on Wednesday, the 22nd. I have an episode with Herbie and the Kurt cast on a very controversial Hong Kong film. So if you like me talking about pop culture and Hong Kong cinema, and no, it's not an action film. It's actually a Wong Jing dark comedy. I can't even say the title. It's that controversial on Brandon's feed because I know he'll never ask me on again if I say the actual title. But it's a great film, and it's going to be called the episode's Hong Kong Bullet Parade. If someone steals it, yes, that is my title. But if someone steals it, fuck you. But it is what it is. So I have 20 bars by the time you steal it, so it doesn't matter. So, but anyways, that will be next, and I'll have something else coming out. Episodes with Tom Will, very important contemporary American poet. Scott Ladotti, very important contemporary American poet. Episodes with Neon Tiger, who is a Dharma practitioner, PhD in Tibetan Buddhism. Solar also joined me on that. I have another one with fan favorite CJ, Fire, Blood, and Bone, who is another Vajra brother. Solar also came on with me for that. I have episodes with Allison Quinn, Cassandra, Eros Up, Kaiva. I've got all these people coming on. I have all these episodes in the archive. I can't even remember all the episodes that I have coming out. So, stay tuned to Threshold Saints. I'm trying to make like a whole metamagical working. And so, if you're interested in that, please check it out. I think it's been a really cool show. I've obviously had a lot of tumultuousness, and I think that pushing forward has allowed me to sort of develop a greater vision for what I think that the show can be and has been and will be in the future. So thank you, everybody, but no one more than Brandon. Please subscribe to Magus in the Media. Please, I love the super chats. That's for Brandon, obviously. But, you guys, if you like the show, please do that. Please support him, whether I'm on or not. I know I joke that, yeah. I mean, yes, of course. Do it on Monday nights, especially because especially. But, of course, any other time, like a particular guest he has on, do it for those episodes as well, and tell Brandon what you like, who you like to see, and what what you think that he's doing. That's great, and then only nice comments, of course, but you can give him like a little direction, because I know for me it really helps when people say this was a great episode, Jen. It really does help, because it actually shows you this is how you should sort of craft your show to be somewhat more like.
Yeah.
Or you should try and not emulate, but reproduce certain elements of what makes those things interesting and why your role in it is important. So thank you guys all. Thank you to the Grey Lodge, Cassandra, Vanessa, Freighter RC, Dusty, Lisa Allen, Eros Up, Joshua the Branch, Solar Exile. I know he wasn't live tonight, but Jug the Goat. Thank you so much, Jug. Appreciate you greatly. Lightning Bug. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Benabel Wen, come on, please.
Yes.
Benabel.
Yes. I will be reaching out, Benabel. Your stuff is brilliant.
I want her on my show. I want her on Brandon's show. I want her on Rejects. Like, please, like, let it happen for us. We would love you to come. We are young Taoist magi in the wilderness. Come teach us your anti-ways, please. Anyways, thank you guys so much. I'm sorry, Brandon, I kept you for that long ass outro, but beautiful. I really appreciate it. And everybody subscribe, share. Sharing is so important. Brandon is great about this. Brandon shares a lot of my shows, a lot of my appearances. He does not have to. He does not have to share Threshold Saints. He always has, and that just shows like what a good character Brandon has, and he never expected any reciprocation. We weren't even that close when he used to do that at the very beginning, but look at us now. So thank you
Yeah,
so much,
exactly.
Brandon Lee, and all the success in the year of the Fire Horse.
Love that. I love that. Thank you, Jen. That was beautiful. I couldn't have asked for a better. He said a lot of things that I wanted to say. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Doubly thank you to Stella and Frater for your super chats. That was fantastic. I want to know, I appreciate everybody. If you do that or not, it doesn't matter, but it does help because this is taking up time for all of us. And a lot of this takes a lot of time to study for. And, so it's Jen and I are both gentlemen who have to do a lot in our lives to make sure that everything is sustained and moves forward, let alone be able to then take time to come and have great conversations. And so whatever you can do, I just put up a bunch of merch, and I will be continuing to make more up on my YouTube. It's Fourth Wall. You can find it through YouTube. I haven't put it up on my other things yet, but it will. If you want this, as Frater said, I appreciate that so much, and I will be putting where I got this from so you can support the artist as well. But this logo it's so beautiful, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. So if you want to see that logo and contemplate on the existence of the sun meeting the moon with the brilliance of magic, you can buy a coffee mug and you can drink your coffee or tea every morning and look at that Magus in the Media logo, because it's not me. I am not Magus in the Media, even though this is the well house of my mercurial mind. The idea is that it is trying to do just what I said before, point the way to that golden thread that moves through all things as the world forever speeds up even faster, the chaos and novelty at an all-time high, and it's only going to continue because of the great change. We are within the fourth turning, and upon that, you need to have a community, and you need to remember that every time you see this logo, that you can remember that myself, Jin, and everybody connected to us in this ethos is there for you, because we are here for ourselves, and we only want to bring the good to the world, even though we are still up here this balancing the forces of nature, and upon doing so we misstep and we have misguide ourselves at times. But that's why all of us are here, to also help us on our journey. And so instead of following the cult of celebrity and to attaching yourselves to egregores, realize that there is the great grand architect of all things, whatever that is in the West, whatever that is in the East. Is it Buddha? Is it Adam Kadmon? Is it just the Ein Sof that moves through all things, that lightning bolt path that awakens us into our apotheosis, to that merging with the divine? And I just think that upon this reflection of the last 3 hours and 20 minutes, we can realize that we can fill ourselves with the substance of light and move ourselves from worrying about the small b beings in the world. We can move and start truly contemplating the ontology through a correct hermeneutics, that we can see being for what it is as we peer across the horizon. I just thank everyone so much. I thank you, Jin.
Shout
Go
out
check
Ashley.
out all the stuff.
Shout out
Yeah.
Ashley. Thank you so much. One of my longest lasting podcasting friend. The second podcast I ever went on was her show. She's now started her own feed. Check her out. I barely see her on the timeline. I reblog as much as I can, but Ashley is a great person, a great podcaster. I care about her a great deal. Support her projects. She's a great researcher. She's been on my show, episode 49. If you want to hear like us dialogue for 2.5 hours, just like Brandon and I did tonight, and maybe not as far ranging, but pretty wild. You can check that episode out, obviously. And Ashley will come back on my show eventually. A hostile hyperborean. I'm going to call you a hostile hapaborean, since this is the hapaborean hour. But appreciate you. And Stella, thank you so much. I apologize for interrupting Brandon, but yeah, you are all made of fucking diamond thunder. So go out there and traverse the hyperspace kingdom. Do not let the archons stop you. The archons are also in your own mind, but so are the aeons, and the aeons are the victorious ones, and they will liberate you from the archons if you so will it.
If you so will it, it's quite beautiful. I'm going to be dropping Sarah Jane's Dream Mysteries interview. It was supposed to come out last week, and like Jen said, you know what? Life gets by us. We're doing what we can. So I'm going to drop that hopefully in the next 2 days. And then I will be having on Gordon White of Ruined Soup, and him and I's conversation. It's going to get wild. I can only imagine that. Chris Knowles is going to be coming on here in the next few weeks, as well as David Beth of Theon Press. And then, of course, Frater and I are going to get our shit together, and we're going to be breaking down the great Reverend Maynard of Tool, Perfect Circle, and Pussifer. Calling you all, Frater. We've got to do it, and it's going to go deep. It's going to be amazing. As well as that, Peter Gray and Alkistis separately are going to be coming on my show. And I'm going to be talking about obviously the things that Peter Gray gets into, obviously the things that Alkistis gets into. It's going to be amazing. Everyone always go out and buy your books from Scarlet Imprint. They are amazing. And in doing so, support Peter Mark Adams, because he is a diamond in the rough and his work is brilliant. I am going to be reaching out to a lot of people to do a lot of different interviews. If you have anybody that you want to see, please reach out to me, DM me, put it in the YouTube convos. I'm starting a Patreon. We're going to be coming out with a Patreon and memberships, and we're just going to continue to build the Magus in the media community. And again, no matter what happens, please go out. And if you want to understand the world and day to day, please go over to Kaiva Rose's Instagram and YouTube. She is the most brilliant traditional astrologer of all time, and she's truly carrying on that fire and brilliance of the celestial majesty. 11 Kaiva Rose 33.
Kaiva is 100%. I just want to give my royal assent, as the co-prince of Hode, honor this hour. I know you're a son of Mercury as well, Brandon. But yes, Kaiva Rose. We have Eros and we have Cassandra, so I obviously highly value them as astrologers and their astrological knowledge, but they're all three are so different. And so what I like about Kaiva is she brings a very fresh perspective of her own. And so I consider her an honorary lodge member by proxy, of course. She's a really important astrologer, and she's talking very, very much about the age of Aquarius, very much about understanding history in a fundamentally Aquarian kind of way. And it's very Aonic to me. I don't want to put words in her mouth and call it Aonic, but for me, I'm just saying that I view it as Aonic. So I agree with everything what Brandon is saying. I was blown away by her episode on rejects, and so everybody check her out and support her as well as Brandon, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and thank you again, Jin. Thank you, everybody in the comments. Again, subscribe, like, and share, and just never be afraid to reach out, because within the midst of the crazy, we are all here to stand right in the center and control all the elements. There's only one way, and that way is forward. So thank you. I hope everyone has a brilliant